Hello, everybody. We'll be starting shortly. We'll be going live here in just a minute or so at 7:30. Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to our legislative live stream. Here we are on week 11. Hard to believe. We're just about halfway, we're just over halfway through of the state legislature this year, and 546 bills introduced. We're going to give you some of the top headlines going through the state capitol this week. And Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon. How about yourself?
Hey, very well, very well. How was your week?
It was good. I had a birthday. I'm 1 year away from 40, so that's been an interesting few days, if I'll say. But everything's good. I mean, we still have a state. We're free for now, and we can keep fighting. So as long as we have a voice, we're going to keep on fighting these tyrants. So, um, really excited to see what our future holds.
Couldn't agree more with you, sir. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hope you had a good one. And what a crazy week. I mean, we had Senate Bill 3 going through two committees, the worst gun bill in Colorado history. A lot of people showing up, a lot of people speaking out. Got really excited to see how many people were getting involved in the process. And what do you think about that one, Michael?
I thought it was really exciting to see people speak up and get passionate, and be very passionate fighting for their rights. That's the whole goal of this live stream is to get people excited, get people activated, and speak their voices. So, seeing what we saw, especially on not only Tuesday but Friday as well, that was phenomenal to see. My big one of my biggest disappointments about Friday is they limited testimony to only 4 hours, really cutting down what people wanted to say and limiting the people who are very passionate about their rights to live their lives how they see fit, defend themselves, and protect themselves how they choose.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was crazy how many people got involved, and then just crazy the disdain of the legislators, these anti-gun legislators, the disdain and disrespect they have for Coloradans. You know, really disappointing to see the limiting of debate. I mean, it only went through by one vote, unfortunately, but there we are. So yeah, like you said, Michael, we're going to try and empower people tonight, give them information, help people get involved, have a voice down at the state capitol. So if this is your first time joining us, we do this every Sunday night during the legislative session, starting here at 7:30. We have a lot to talk about. So you ready to get started, Michael?
Absolutely, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about these bills and see what happens over the next couple hours.
Definitely, yeah, a lot to be talking about. Couldn't resist making this a kind of a St. Patrick's Day theme, of course, St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. So got to have a little fun here, have a little fun with these live streams. So yeah, I know there's some maybe one or two pot of gold, but a lot of bad stuff here this week at our state capitol, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Hey, one more thing I want to say, Brandon. Just because I know it's super easy to get blackpilled, but look at how many people fought. Look how many people spoke up. Uh, there is a there is a sense of people that are desperate for liberty in Colorado. They understand what's happening and keep fighting. Don't let that sense die down because people play tricks. We know they're going to play tricks, but that means we got to fight until election season comes around, and here in what a little over a year and a half we gotta kick these monsters out. That's all we have to that's the goal that we have to have over the next almost 2 years. kick these people out come November 2026. So I'm looking forward to fighting with you, and we all have to come together. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Libertarian, unaffiliated, whatever. We have to kick these people out, and it's only going to happen if we all come together. So I'm looking forward to fighting with you.
Awesome. Well said, Michael. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to fighting with everybody out there. And just like St. Patrick, I was it him that chased the snakes out of Ireland, with his club chasing the snakes out. Just like St. Patrick, we have to, in Colorado, chase out the tyrants out of our great state and chase out these communists and these people who want to infringe on every aspect of our lives. So couldn't agree more there. So we got a good action-packed agenda tonight. So first off, folks, we're starting off talking about the bills of the week. So these are the bills that are being heard in committee hearings this week. Committee hearings are important because that's where you can show up, you can speak out. You have, 2, 3 minutes to have your voice heard, to look these legislators in the eyes, tell them what you think about these bills, and say something about it. We can't let this tyranny pass in silence. There needs to be people getting involved. We need to have this unified front, as Michael was saying, to get involved at our local level here in Colorado. So we're going to be talking about the bills of the week that you can provide testimony either in person or remote this week. And then at 8:30, we're going to have our special guest join, Representative Scott Bottoms, who's also running for governor. So it'll be very interesting to see what he has to say about what's been going on in the legislature so far. You do not want to miss that, people. And then we'll get back to wrapping up the bills of the week at 9 o'clock. And then at the end, like every week, we're going to give you some updates on some of the bigger bills going through this legislative session. So bills that weren't necessarily being heard this week, but just to give you that status update. Maybe you're interested in a good pro-liberty bill. We'll tell you if it's still going through the process or if it died, or maybe some bad bills you're trying to keep an eye on. So we'll give you an update on some of the most important bills going through the legislature this year. So, all right, how does that sound, Michael?
That sounds great. I'm excited to get into it, Brandon.
Perfect. Let's jump in here. So, big question. What can you testify on this week? We're going to look at the bills of the week here. So, get your green beer ready. These committee hearings, like we said, are where you can stand up and speak out and get involved. So, let's see what we got going on the calendar down at the Colorado State Legislature this week. So Monday, starting off tomorrow, March 17th at 1:30 p.m. in LSBA. So LSB is the Legislative Services Building across from the state capitol. There's two really interesting bills that we wanted to make people aware of. So first one is House Bill 1225, the Freedom from Intimidation in Elections Act. Probably the least favorite legislator down there for so many people across Colorado is little Stevie Worm Woodrow, who's out there to try and protect people from being intimidated when they're voting. And what is intimidation, according to Little Woodrow here? Well, maybe that means that somebody has a firearm on them. Colorado is an open carry state, and especially outside of the metro area, a lot of people are carrying firearms, whether concealed, and they have the right to carry them openly. But Stephen Woodrow here has this anti gun legislation, believe it or not, another anti gun bill to say that any individual who carries a visible firearm, imitation firearm, or toy firearm while interacting with or observing any of the specified election related activities is presumed, in the absence of any affirmative showing to the contrary, to have engaged in intimidation prohibited by the bill. So not only do you lose your innocent until proven guilty there, but the fact that you have a firearm that somebody sees, then yeah, you could be considered intimidating people and bad news. What do you think about this, Michael?
I think this is an absolutely ridiculous bill, but what do you expect from somebody like Stephen Woodrow who no longer has a Twitter account for some reason?
Oh yeah, this guy is a total worm, absolutely crazy. But yeah, really, the idea there of people is they're trying to get rid of the idea that peaceful people, law-abiding people, should be carrying firearms. That's part of what they're trying to do here. So, if you're out in the rural Colorado, maybe it makes sense to have a firearm on you, and maybe you're going to vote at the polling place as your right. But that'll be illegal under Representative Woodrow's bill here. So, folks, this is an important one. If you care about these issues, you can speak out, get involved. Being heard tomorrow, Monday, in the State Civic and Military Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m. March 17th. So, see if you can listen in on that one and maybe speak out on it.
The good news is there is no prime sponsor in the Senate on this bill, so let's hope that this thing can just die out on its own.
Definitely, yeah. Hopefully, people see it as a ridiculous bill, like you said. But let's move on. In that same committee, oh boy, here we go. Little Tommy Sullivan with Woodrow back supports for state response to mass shooting. So just wanted to bring this one up, of course, because it's something that we have been talking about all session, where people are very interested in the gun bills. So Senate Bill 59 would require the Division of Criminal Justice and the Department of Public Safety to apply for and accept and expend federal or other grant money to improve the state's response to mass shootings, including grant money to support services for victims of mass shootings. So, it's just another one of those bills that's really trying to paint this narrative and trying to be all around this whole idea that guns are a problem in our society. And unfortunately, this bill's made it all the way through the Senate and is being heard in its first House committee tomorrow. So there we go. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern with this one is what are they going to consider support? Is it going to go into anti-gun propaganda? I could see them using, I could see them using those funds for anti-gun propaganda. Absolutely.
That's a great point. And, it does talk about grant money. So that means some, foundations, some nonprofits, some other organizations that can come in and get their little hands in here with Colorado's political scene. So, maybe not the worst bill we've seen all year, but nonetheless, wanted to bring it up, want to make sure people were aware of this because it just is this whole continued narrative that they're trying to push. And yeah, trying to just bring in state power to go after legal gun owners, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you could see them definitely giving this money to NGOs that like Giffords, Mom Demands Actions, etc. So I could definitely see them doing that. Bloomberg pay them back for all the support that they've given these Democrats who want to take your rights away.
Definitely. So those are both being heard Monday, March 17th in the State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. Let's go ahead and look at the Finance Committee, House Finance Committee here on Monday. Some really interesting bills we wanted to make you aware of. Folks, I was looking at the comments here in the chat. We do have a live chat going on here on YouTube. Definitely interactive there. Appreciate everybody being there. But, so many of these bills you don't hear about on the news. So much activity happens down at the state capitol that people just aren't aware of. So whether it's good, bad, or ugly, we want to get you a little bit more insight on what's happening. So this one was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up for a few points. So this is House Bill 1126, the Public Utilities Commission, membership geographic representation. So, one of the big issues here in Colorado is how our state government is representing the people, of course, right? I've heard a lot of people say we need some sort of electoral college system where rural communities can have a little bit more of an impact, a little bit more of a voice, because unfortunately, so much of the Denver metro area and these bigger population centers just override any of the concerns of rural Colorado. And it's really not fair. It doesn't make sense to have these one size fits all solutions decided by Denver politicians and then imposed on these rural and mountain communities and these places that it doesn't necessarily make sense for. So I thought this one was interesting because it kind of addresses that issue. So the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, if this bill passes, it would increase the membership of the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, from 3 to 5, with 2 of the commissioners representing the state at large and 3 representing one district each. The 3 districts are defined to include named counties, with 1 consisting of the Denver metro area, 1 for the western region of the state, and 1 for the eastern region of the state. So it kind of divides it up a little bit more in terms of making sure that the eastern plains and the western slope both have at least 1 commissioner. And then, of course, there's those 8 at-large positions as well. But just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting. Of course, we have Byron Pelton, who represents Senate District 1, the northeastern, one of the most rural parts of Colorado, and then Ty Winter as well, who does a lot of more of the rural areas. So, we're seeing that kind of coming together there. What do you think about this one, Michael?
I like this one. I mean, as you said, I think this is going to give a lot more people better representation. I also am a big fan of the fact that this one has bipartisan representation for the prime sponsors. Plus, we are seeing senatorial and House reps uh, be a part of this bill or sponsoring this bill, excuse me. So I think this one has a good chance of passing. I'd love to see something that's going to represent all people. I know Democrats love to talk about how they want to give people better representation as a part of the governmental process, and I think this is a great way do that. And I think that there's a real need within a lot of these local governments. And this state is extremely diverse in its terrain and its climate and its communities. And people seem to forget that. Everybody loves to think that Colorado is just the Denver Boulder metro area, and it's so much more than that. So I think this is going to be a good bill that's going to more effectively represent Colorado from a utility standpoint.
Yeah, we don't like government job programs. We were joking about that with last week's bill on increasing the amount of county commissioners in communities in certain
Hmm.
counties. But nonetheless, so right now, Colorado has three commissioners for the PUC, and they're making good money, $170,000 a year, 4-year term required by or Senate confirmation there. But this would expand that to the five, creating a little bit more representation, like we were talking about. So unfortunately, we do not have a free market in energy, as in utilities. It'd be great to eventually get there, but in the meantime, it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't want to see an increase in the size of government. I don't want to see additional employees at the state level. I don't want to see more money being spent. But at the same time, what do you do to get better representation, to represent some of these rural communities and Western Slope communities that are being left out of the process currently?
Absolutely. And I really like the fact that the three not the three districts that they're going to create is going to be an Eastern Slope, a Denver metro area, as well as a Western Slope. So I think that's going to be critical for this proposed bill to better represent Colorado.
Definitely well said. And welcome everybody in the chat there. Happy St. Patrick's Day Eve. I hope you're having some fun out there. Pour Guinness, and let's talk about what's going on at our state capitol. So this is all Monday in the House Finance Committee, being heard at 1:30 p.m. House Committee Room 112. So that's the first floor of the state capitol, starting at 1:30 there, as I said. Another interesting bill, one that's definitely gotten a lot of attention, a lot of controversy, and a lot of people up in arms, is House Bill 1220, the regulation of medical nutrition therapy. Now, we've talked about this bill in the past. We had Senator Pelton and Representative Hartsook get on and really kind of explain why they sponsored this bill. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I know it's such an important bill to so many people that watch our live stream that I wanted to make sure they knew that this bill is being heard Monday in the House Finance Committee. What do you think about this one, Michael?
I have some serious concerns about it. I'm not going to get dig too deep into this one at this time. I mean, we've heavily covered this bill itself, but one thing I do want to bring up is I haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of changes that have been promised so far for the bill itself. Maybe you have them, but you've seen them, but I don't necessarily see it so far. I mean, we've got two amendments that were passed a few weeks ago in Health and Human Services, and that's about it.
Yeah, good point there. There haven't been a lot of changes. Tomorrow would be the day when they can bring these amendments in. So we'll see what the bill sponsors end up doing with this bill. But of course, just to give people that 30-second rundown on it here, on or after September 1st, 2026, if this House bill passes, an individual would be prohibited from engaging in or offering to provide medical nutrition therapy unless they are licensed by the state of Colorado. I hate occupational licenses. It's a total affront to liberty. If an individual wants to get medical nutrition therapy from somebody they decide to meet with, whoever it is, that's up to them. It's not this government's job to try and protect them from people who might be giving them bad advice or bad information. But like you said, Michael, some amendments are promised. We'll see what ends up happening with this bill tomorrow on Monday. So, in this same committee, in the House Finance Committee, there's another interesting bill I wanted to bring up, especially looking at the bill sponsors, House Bill 1260, Electrical Generation and Distribution Resiliency. So, Ken DeGraff has run some of these bills about electrical resiliency and trying to strengthen our electric grid for the last couple years. So it's been interesting to see him really focus on this issue, an issue that you don't necessarily hear a lot about. But this bill would require the PUC we were just talking about to evaluate electrical generation and grid resilience against geomagnetic storms. So there's your what do they call those? Like not necessarily like a supernova, but the sun whatever the electrical stuff from the sun there. I'm gonna
Like from sun
blank.
flares and stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Solar flares. That's the word I was
Solar
thinking
flare,
of.
yeah. Hmm.
And then this commission would report the findings of the evaluation to the General Assembly. And so there you go. So kind of interesting to think about space weather and paying attention to that and trying to strengthen Colorado's electrical grid. to protect it from solar flares and some other astronomical activity. So just an interesting bill. I don't know what the Liberty perspective exactly on this one is. Maybe you can share your thoughts on this, Michael.
I'm a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit concerned with this one because when you pull up the fiscal note on this one, you can see they're adding FTEs. I do see from a practical standpoint, thinking about this topic, it's not going to be that much. We're seeing, 78,000 next year. All things considered, that's a small drop in the bucket. Um, but it would, you know, basically create a part-time job for a year while they're launching this program. All things considered, I've seen much worse bills out there, and I do think it's something that's a interesting thing to think about from a Dora perspective or from a energy perspective. But I'm not super concerned about this one just um because of everything else going on in Colorado. I trust Kindegraff. I trust Ron Pelton. I think that they're gonna have the best. I think that they have what's best for Colorado at heart. So, um, yeah, that's
Yeah,
real. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily for or against this one. I think I would honestly need a little bit more information.
Yeah, interesting points there. I think hopefully this isn't really something the government should be doing. You can leave it up to private agencies. Colorado has such a huge aerospace and space kind of industry there, so maybe they can do some of this. But nonetheless, interesting. Not the worst thing we've ever seen, and not the worst thing the government has ever done is to start paying more attention to space weather and solar flares, things like that. But just wanted to bring this up for people because it's such an interesting bill there. So being heard Monday in that House Finance Committee. So we'll see how that one goes. It did pass one committee already, so interesting. Perfect. So that's what we got for that committee, the House Finance Committee tomorrow, Monday, March 17th. So let's move on to Tuesday here. So March 18th in the House Judiciary Committee. So first floor, House Committee Room 107, upon adjournment of the State House. We've seen a lot of really important bills. Of course, really anything to do with criminal justice reform, all the anti-gun bills, they're all going through these judiciary committees. So I know a lot of people watching are pretty familiar with the committee members, and this is a good opportunity for people to speak out, talk to them if you're interested in any of these bills. So three we want to talk to here. Talk about peace officer conduct database. Now this bill has already been had the witness testimony and committee discussion on it. So tomorrow they're just going to vote what they call action only. So they might introduce amendments. And then they're going to vote on the bill, decide whether to send it on to the next committee or the House floor. So interesting bill here. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but I know this has been a big bill that I've seen some articles on. There's some efforts last year. The bill failed in 2024 to kind of do this, but unfortunately, there are some law enforcement officers in Colorado, as there are everywhere, who do some bad things. So having a database where we can kind of track their conduct is probably a good thing. We probably need this to make sure that some of these bad apples don't get onto other police forces, and that's probably a good thing there. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's worse bills that the Democrats have suggested. I mean, as you said, there are a lot of bad police officers out there. There's a lot of good police officers out there too. I feel like there's no room for nuance when it comes to the discussion of policing. So I think that there could be some potentially benefits from a bill like this. I mean, it gets bad officers exposure, and these officers need to be exposed. So, as always, my biggest concern is the fiscal note and how much this is going to cost. I mean, this will be turned into a full-time job for another individual for the state that's, in the midst of $1 billion shortfall, and our legislators cannot figure out how to reduce the size and scope of the Colorado government, which is desperately needed. So I don't know if this is the right time for something like this because our legislators can't keep, you know, they can't steward the money that they've been given properly through taxation. But um, I am very curious about this. I would like to see if this is something that could potentially be done through the private sector. I'd much prefer to see something like that done without state funds versus a bill like this that is tracked with state funds being used.
Yeah, interesting bill for sure. If people want to get more information, just go to leg.colorado.gov, search for House Bill 1136. There's a lot of information you can find out about this one. I know there's at least one Denver Post article about it. So interesting information out there for people. Also being heard in the House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday is House Bill 1031. Now, another bill that is seeing some controversy there, law enforcement whistleblower protection, and interestingly enough, by the same representatives. And Chad Clifford is a police officer. I don't know if he still is, but he had been at some point. The guy's got, it seems like a hothead to me. It doesn't seem like anybody I'd want to see in law enforcement. I was down there at a committee hearing this last Monday, and he just doesn't seem like a very level-headed person. So hate to stereotype there about some police officers, but Chad Clifford, I hope you're never back in law enforcement.
I completely agree. I was absolutely shocked when he tried to put Ian Escalante under oath because he wanted to question some of the ballot petitions that RMG had dropped off from members of his district. So I thought that was very, very interesting that he was trying to threaten a private citizen with uh, with law enforcement, with the threat of law enforcement and perjury. So, very, very interesting back and forth that we saw from this man.
Yeah, definitely. And just to give people this little bit of a tip here, I like going into these fiscal notes. So, there's these bills are long. Sometimes they have a language that's relatively obscure. They talk about certain revised statutes, and it's not always obvious what they mean. But if you click here where it says view recent fiscal note, as Michael has pointed out, the fiscal note really tells how many full-time employees this bill is going to require. If it's enacted into law, it's going to talk about how much of our taxpayer money is going to go into this program, but it also gives you a nice description that kind of breaks things down a little bit simpler, I think, and kind of, 'cause this is legislative council staff. They're real nonpartisan. They do a great job of writing an explanation. It's not necessarily any that political, so easy to understand here as opposed to reading a news article. So just to read here quickly on this bill. The bill creates a private right of action for a peace officer against their employer if the employer retaliates against a whistleblower who disclosed a danger to public health or safety or an alleged violation of law committed by another officer. The new whistleblower protections apply to peace officers employed by a subdivision or instrumentality of the state, such as a county, city, and county, municipality, public school district, or special purpose district or authority. The bill lays out what actions against a whistleblower are unlawful, waives sovereign immunity in these actions, establishes a statute of limitations, establishes what a court can do in frivolous cases, and clarifies that internal administrative processes should be followed before bringing a case. Finally, the bill requires all state and local agencies employing peace officers to provide training or workplace posting about these requirements. So, reading that summary, what's your impression, Michael?
I mean, I really like it. I mean, I do believe that we need more whistleblowers and whistleblower protection within Colorado. I Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is can you go back to the state expenditures again to see specifically how much this is going to cost? Yeah, I mean, this is going to cost nothing. So I would love to see something like this enacted. I mean, like I was saying earlier, it's such a nuanced debate. Police officers are going to risk their lives, they're going to die for you, and that's a phenomenal thing to think of. But at the same time, there are many police officers out there that are bad apples that are going to strip you of your rights. They're going to abuse the power that they have over you. They are human beings after all. They're not somebody who's above the law. Um, and we need protections from government. At the end of the day, they are another form of government. So if we can have more protections and have the ability to blow the whistle when people do abuse their power over citizens, that needs to be able to be exposed.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more. We need more whistleblowing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of funny business in law enforcement. There's that blue wall they talk about where a lot of these officers aren't willing to report on other ones. And I can understand it. You know, you work together, you're putting your lives on your line, you trust these other people with your lives. You're not going to rat them out. It's got to be really serious. But providing some sort of level of protection could mean a good thing, I think. It is interesting. They do have a little technical note here because, of course, there could be lawsuits. So they do say state expense if it does apply to state departments, because that's a question here. Even the writer of the bill or the fiscal note isn't sure that it applies to state departments, and I did notice that they didn't talk about state law enforcement. But state expenditures could increase by 1.1 million and 2.1 million there in legal services and potential settlement costs. So of course, you know, there could be a huge cost there if there are lawsuits, if there are settlements, if these law enforcement officers are whistleblowing and end up getting fired and they have to go to court. So I don't see how this is a bad bill. I'd love to hear from people in the comments. I'll have to tune into the committee hearing audio on Tuesday to see if there what the explanations are of why this is a bad bill. I'd be interested to hear arguments against it. But it seems to me like House Bill 1031 is a good bill to provide whistleblower protection to law enforcement officers. Love to hear what people have to say in the chat.
Completely agree.
So perfect. One more bill we want to talk about in this House Judiciary Committee. Gosh, this is going to be a long day for those committee members or anybody in this House Judiciary Committee. A lot of big bills, some controversy. I'm sure we'll see a lot of people showing up in their uniforms to testify. But House Bill 62 wanted to bring this up here because we have Henriksen. Senator Henriksen is one of the top targets for the 2026 race. He barely won back in 2022, and he's been a staunch, really authoritarian type of legislator. He did not vote for Senate Bill 3. You may have noticed he did not vote for Senate Bill 3 because he knows he is one of the top targets to be replaced in 2026, one of the most vulnerable Democrats out there. But just wanted to bring this up because, of course, crime, criminal justice, we've seen so many recent articles about Denver being a hotbed for criminal activity. Of course, all the Venezuelan gang issues. So, any of these bills that really concern crime and punishment are of definitely of big interest this year.
Hey, Brandon, I want to bring up, you brought up something really interesting. I want to ask the chat to do. Is it possible for some of you guys to take a look at Nick Hendrickson's recent bill, votes on gun control laws and just see if we can get some sort of mock-up? It's phenomenal that he didn't vote for Senate Bill 3. I want to know what his votes are on some of these other gun control measures because that's just because he didn't vote for Senate Bill 3 doesn't mean he's not a gun grabber.
Definitely a good question. Would love to see that. Would love to start seeing all the bad votes and bad bills that Henriksen has supported over the last 4 years, because the voters there would I'd love to see that replace him. But what's interesting, you can see, so folks, if you're looking at these bills, just to give you an ideas, and they do tell you at the bottom here, italicized words indicate new material added. So that's be through the amendment process, and dashes through the words are deletions from the original summary. So it kind of shows you the process in which these bills are being crafted, these laws are being crafted as things change. So the fiscal note does change as well, and the staff keeps up. I mean, they have a staff down there that really keeps up and making sure that they're adjusting these fiscal notes every time this bill is amended. So, just to give people an idea of what Senate Bill 62 does, this bill prohibits municipal courts from using failure to appear as the basis of a municipal criminal offense. Home rule cities cannot override these restrictions. Failure to appear includes any other term a municipality might use to describe a person's absent from a scheduled court date. The bill does not prevent a municipal judge from issuing a bench warrant for failure or to appear or from considering such failures when setting bond at a later date. So basically, in my mind, this seems to be eliminating the crime of failure to appear. So somebody's arrested, gets bailed out, they're out on the streets, they don't show up to their court hearing. Of course, they get this bench warrant issued on them, but they don't get this additional charge. They don't get this additional failure to appear charge. They're only really being tried on that original charge that they were arrested for in the first place. So this seems to be a pro-crime kind of bill. You know, it's not a good pro-law enforcement bill, which of course is interest to a lot of people in Colorado right now with everything going on. What are your thoughts on this one, Michael?
I think I agree with you. I mean, it does seem like they're going to use this as a tool to bludgeon people with a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm interested to see if maybe, does it make sense that people shouldn't be charged with failure to appear for not showing up to their court hearing? Should they get that additional charge? It seems interesting. It's an interesting bill, definitely interesting out there, and I'm sure people have their opinions on it. So Senate Bill 62 is going to be heard here on Tuesday in this House Judiciary Committee upon adjournment of the State House. So definitely a long day in that committee there, but let's go ahead and move on. And folks, if you're just joining us, we are going to have Representative Scott Bottoms join us at 8:30. Recent governor candidate, so we'll be talking to him soon. So stay on here. We're going to keep going through the bills being heard this week. These are all bills being heard in committee that you can speak on, that you can have your voice heard and have an impact and get involved in the process down at the state capitol in Denver. So Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the old Supreme Court, the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. There's going to be a lot of presentations, which are interesting. If people want to attend those, they always can. But Senate Bill 132, wanted to bring this one up again. It's something we've talked about previously, but just wanted to briefly mention it because I think it is a good pro-liberty bill. The Spiritus Liquor Manufacturer tastings conducted. We've talked about it in the past as being an extremely minor improvement in some of Colorado's outdated liquor laws. Of course, we have some of the least favorite legislators on it. I see you shaking your head there, Michael. But some of the worst,
It's
most authoritarian legislators. Yeah, go ahead.
it's just the Senadora's hat. I mean, it's just so absurd. It's throwing me off. I'm sorry. Sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, no, I know. Some of these people, you see their picture and you can't help but laugh. I'm right there with you. But Senate Bill 132 would authorize the manufacture of spirituous liquors. So, your whiskey distilleries and such. It would allow them to get other alcohol beverages served at their facility from that they have to acquire through a wholesaler licensed in the state. And they can have 5 approved sales room locations. Talked about this one last week, but it did make it through that committee, or actually got delayed. It looks like wow. So they didn't hear this bill last week. We talked about it previously because it was supposed to be heard, and then it got pushed back. So interesting to see that. That's always interesting when that happens. But that's the only bill on the calendar in these Business Affair, Labor and Technology Committee on Tuesday. But I think it's a good bill. I'd love to see Stranahan's great distillery. Love to see them have more approved sales room locations. Would love to see them be able to serve other alcohol, other liquor. But it's a small, minor improvement in liberty. But hey, we'll take it at this point, right?
Absolutely. I want to see more alcohol manufacturers being able to promote their product wherever they want, really. I mean, I'll take this while I can get it, but yeah, let's see if we can expand this at a later date in future legislative sessions.
Definitely. I'm really, I want liberty entirely. I want a true free state of Colorado. But at least in the midterm here, if we can improve, I think our liquor laws here in Colorado are so outdated that there's room for improvement there. And, I'm a big believer we fight where we can win. And here at this level, we could probably make some good wins for victory. So we'll see. So also on Tuesday, 2 anti-gun bills being heard on the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Now, these are both House bills, folks. The House is definitely the more radical of the 2 chambers. So there's maybe, just maybe a chance that these bills could be stopped in the Senate. Don't think so necessarily. Don't get me wrong. Don't want to get your hopes up, but that's the best opportunity to stop them. So, all you gun rights activists out there, everybody out there who cares about our rights to keep and bear arms, Tuesday in the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee at 2 p.m., Senate Committee Room 352, so the third floor of the state capitol. This is a committee you should testify in, show up, speak out, do remote testimony, but get involved because this is important bills that infringe on your rights. So looking at the first bill, of course, bill people are very familiar with, House Bill 1133, would basically outlaw the ability for under 21-year-olds to buy ammunition, which in my mind is 100% unconstitutional and just an affront to people's rights as human beings, as adults. So banning under 21s from buying ammunition, and of course, creating all these new restrictions and all these new um, ridiculous requirements for gun shops, for sporting goods stores, for people to be able to sell ammunition. So you can see here, folks, if you see this italicized, you can go read what was added to the bill. So those are some of the amendments because this bill did get amended relatively heavily, but nonetheless, the bad stuff here is still there, and it's a horrible anti-gun bill, folks. They're coming after your ammunition. So if you hadn't heard about House Bill 1133, definitely dig into it and do everything possible to try and stop it. What are your thoughts on this one, Michael?
I completely agree. If you can call your senator, or yeah, if you can call the senators on this one, as this one's already passed the House, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so if you guys could call the senators, can we go down to the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee? And I don't know how much luck we're going to have this because I believe the only two Republicans are the Peltons. Yes, we've got Pelton B and Pelton R, plus Ball, Weissman, and Sullivan. I don't know how much success we'll have on that, but if we can at least contact those committee members and let them know your opinion, that means the world. They track that information and and let them know your thoughts.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, I think, of course, we know Tom Sullivan is one of the most anti-gun legislators Colorado's ever seen. Senator Weissman is a total screwball authoritarian, and Matt Ball is a little bit of a wild card because he's new to the legislature this year. But unfortunately, he did vote for Senate Bill 3. He votes for a lot of really bad legislation. So not holding out too much hope here. But nonetheless, it's a good opportunity for people to speak out, get involved, have your voice heard. We can't let them pass this stuff without the public speaking out. So House Bill 1133, definitely a bad one. Would love to see this one stopped, but it really, show up, people, show up Tuesday at this committee hearing. Unfortunately, in that same committee, we have the gun show requirements bill being heard. So this bill basically would try and shut down gun shows. I mean, this is a full-on assault, folks. They're going after ammunition. They're going after firearms in general. They're going after gun shows. They're going after gun shops. They're making it as hard as possible here in Colorado to make it that legal for legally, people who are law-abiding, who want to follow the law, who are interested in being legal gun owners from doing so. So this is terrible, terrible bill. The Democrats should be in this state house should be ashamed of this bill because they're really promoting it as this way to make gun shows safer, and it's absolutely insane. Nobody is stealing guns from gun shows, and that's what this bill supposedly is doing with this security plan. But come on, if you've ever been to a gun shows are about the safest place out there. There's so many people with firearms. No criminals are getting away with robbing a show or going on some sort of rampage there. It's just a purely design. Its bill was purely designed to shut down gun shows, to create all these restrictions, to increase the costs, and make it very difficult for gun shows to operate in Colorado. And it's absolutely shameful.
No, I agree, Brandon. If anything, I could possibly see this modifying the gun show, the way gun shows do business. We might start seeing people pre-register their background checks, and in some weird ways, it might make it more efficient. They might be forcing some more efficiencies for gun shows because if you have to wait that 3 days, you might as well go online and pre-register your background check, and get everything cleared before you even enter. That way you can leave with your gun. Um, who knows what could happen from a bill like this? It's a bad bill, but we got to let the free market find a way to keep gun shows free.
Definitely. Yeah. Two massive assaults on our right to keep and bear arms. All of these legislators who sponsor and vote for these bills should be driven out of Colorado. They have no place in a free society. They have no place in Colorado, as far as I'm concerned. But I really hope people can show up and speak out this Tuesday, March 18th, in the State Veterans Military Affairs Senate Committee Room 352. This is at 2 p.m., folks. So please tell people, get the word out there to the pro gun community, and hopefully we can get some good public showing there.
Oh, can you? And this is also heard in state military veterans and military affairs, correct?
Yeah, Senate, State, Veterans, and Military Affairs.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be another one where we're going to want to make sure we hit up Senator Ball.
Definitely. And this bill did pass the House, unfortunately, but hopefully there can be at least some slowdown in the process in the Senate side. So that's in that same committee, two really bad anti-gun bills being heard this Tuesday. Let's move on to Wednesday here, folks, and stay tuned. We have a guest joining us here shortly at 8:30. We'll have Representative Scott Bottoms joining us, giving us an update about what's going on in the state capitol. but some really interesting transportation bills. I wanted to bring this first one up, especially because it just shows you what the sorry state of RTD. And I don't mean to laugh, folks. I don't mean to laugh, but it is so ridiculous. How bad is RTD? It's so bad. They have to pass a bill to create a new criminal offense for assault of a transit worker. That's right. Transit workers, RTD workers are getting exposed to fentanyl. They're getting exposed to drugs. They're getting harassed. They're probably getting hurt by these criminals out on the streets here in Denver. And now they have to, these legislators feel like they need to create a new specific criminal offense related to the assault of a transit worker. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, obviously, absolutely ridiculous that there's certain classes of people or certain jobs out there that are treated differently than everybody else in our society, that transit workers get some sort of specific there's an extra penalty associated with it, attacking them as opposed to attacking just any other member of the public. But just really, wanted to show people this is if you want more proof about the decline in the Denver metro area, they had to create a new law to go after people hurting transit workers. So there you go. What do you think?
I think this is I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Denver is decaying at such a rate, the Denver metro area is decaying at such a rate that they have to create these special rules because they don't want to clean up Denver, and instead they want to create new laws, add extra protections instead of going after the root of the problem. So, uh, yeah, if we could, it's it's kind of interesting to me that they are creating this law to protect people from violent crimes, which I don't think a libertarian is going to be mad about a law preventing violent crime. A libertarian has a problem with nonviolent crimes being punished by the government. So I would love to see and honestly, I mean there are a lot of existing laws to protect people from these types of crimes already. So I mean, we need, I mean, we what we really need to do is clean up Colorado, and we need to have our legislators focusing on making Colorado a safer place. If I remember correctly, we're the seventh most dangerous state in the country. Absolutely insane. I don't want to take my family downtown Denver. Just a few years ago, I would have absolutely done that. Now I'm like, if we go to a Navs game, we go to a Nuggets game, we're gonna go straight there. We're gonna go straight home. We're not gonna go visit any other location. We're not gonna go visit a bar. We're not gonna go some other place downtown because it's too dangerous. So I get why they have to I get why this legislation exists, but they need to go after the heart of the problem.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out to people, they even included that they come into contact with bodily fluids or hazardous materials. So, how many of these transit workers, these poor people down there, are getting attacked and bodily fluids from some of these violent people, hazardous materials. I mean, it's bad stuff. But also, what's great about these fiscal notes out there is they give you some kind of prior conviction data, some reference material here. So, just to get an estimate of what they think this bill would do. So, from fiscal year 21 to 22, to fiscal year 23 to 24. So basically, think of it as 2021 to 2024, 322 individuals have been convicted and sentenced for this offense, or about 107 per year. So, there's 52 weeks in a year. This is 107, right? So there's literally about two a week that criminals are being convicted of, being attacked by, as a transit worker. I mean, that's crazy. Of the persons convicted, 225 were male, 96 were female, one did not have a gender identified. 233 were white, 53 were black, 19 Hispanic, 3 were Asian. Just interesting stuff on there, folks, to see this out there. Not to get into that part too much, but nonetheless, interesting to think that how frequent and how prevalent the issue is on RTD and mass transit, that these transit workers are being attacked so much that they need a new law. And absolutely insane. So crazy bill. Just want to get this in front of people, just showing that absolute decline of Denver and where we're at. So in that same committee, and the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee on Wednesday, there's also the RTD bill, one of the bigger RTD bills this year, Senate Bill 51. But basically, this would change how they count their costs. They would they want to really try and cook the books, it seems, or change how they don't like how the reporting is working currently. So don't want to spend too much time on this, but just want to bring it up because RTD is one of the largest governments in Colorado. It's one of the biggest employers of state employees. Or of any government employees, excuse me. It's not like they're all across the state, but nonetheless, it's a huge government agency. People don't know how big they are. They're not much smaller than the Transport Department of Transportation in Colorado, CDOT. So anytime these bills happen, I definitely want to bring it up to people because it's such a huge thing that so few people pay attention to. So they're basically just changing how they're calculating operating costs, whether that's good or bad. I don't have enough information, but nonetheless, something I'd be kind of concerned about there. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, I'm always concerned with what they're gonna try to spend government money on, um, and how they want to use government money. I mean, you can see in this one, quote unquote, they aren't gonna spend any more money, but they're gonna change the definition of how they're spending of what they can spend money on. So I'm a little bit concerned about this one. I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of I feel like this is a little bit too vague for me. I'd like to see some more specifics on this. Yeah, this very well could be a just a budget game for Colorado and RTD. So I'm concerned about this one.
Yeah, definitely interested in there. They're basically changing how the definition of operating costs to not include depreciation anymore. So that's kind of interesting there. So they don't want to include depreciation as part of their operating costs. So kind of a technical bill, but nonetheless, just an important bill having to do with RTD. So I want to bring that up. One more bill here before our guest joins us here. Also, we got some great questions in the chat. We're going to be asking some questions to our guests. So keep those questions coming, everybody. So this bill being heard in the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee on Wednesday, House Bill 1295, food truck operations. So it's interesting. I'd love to get your perspective on this, Michael, from a libertarian perspective to see kind of what you think. So basically, this bill would require local governments across the state to accept reciprocal licensing and permitting for food trucks. So, say I'm a food truck operator down in Denver. Now I can drive my food truck up to a smaller community out there and operate there, basically having this reciprocal license and permit. So don't get me wrong. I hate the idea of licenses, as we were talking earlier. I don't like this idea of permits, but at the same time, I could see this being an attack on local control because if you have a local community or a local government wanting to say what kind of food trucks they want to operate, not that I'm a fan of protectionism, but maybe they want to try and protect their local food trucks and prevent these more corporatized, out of area food trucks from coming into their community. Because you could see a situation in which you're a big food truck operator, maybe in Denver, and then as long as you're, or in any community, right? Any part of Colorado where it's easiest to get that permit and that license, and then you can send your food trucks all across the state to any different local communities. So I don't know. What do you think about this one, Michael?
Yeah, I think this one requires a little bit of nuance, like you said. If it's a local government wanting this to happen, if they want to accept other other city and counties permits, I mean, they should be allowed to. This isn't something that should be forced upon the local governments by the state. So that's where I draw the line with this bill. If a local government wants to do this on their own, absolutely they should be allowed to, but don't force this from this with a top-down approach onto all these rural counties and cities where uh, they might need to run their city differently than what's then they might need to run their municipality different than how the state might see fit, and what the state might see fit might not be best for those local communities.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I love this idea of local control. If Boulder wants to do things their way and Greeley wants to do it a whole different way, they should be allowed to, in my mind. Some of these bills seem pro-liberty, and maybe they are for some people, but we see this with housing, with zoning laws, some of these top-down changes where they have basically Denver wanting to override local communities' zoning laws, housing laws, food truck laws, any of that from the state level, forcing it on local communities that don't necessarily want to go along with it. So, agree with you. I think there's some nuance there. It's interesting. You know, love the idea in principle, but then thinking about what this could do to affect local communities and taking away that control, because I'm all about decentralizing political power. Let local communities have the more power and have the state have less power. This bill does the opposite. It puts all the power at the hands of the state and takes away that power from local jurisdictions. So interesting stuff there. And Jody brings up a good question. But if food truck owners want to go to other counties, maybe they can't afford all those licensing fees in those other counties, other municipalities. It's a good point. It's a good question.
Hmm.
So definitely some interesting there. And I think we have time to get into one more bill here. Talking on Wednesday. So this bill is for action only. It's a bill we've been talking about. We had Representative Kindegraff join us as a guest earlier in the year. A really important bill, one of the most pro-liberty bills we've seen all year. House Bill 1067, criminal asset forfeiture. This bill would eliminate civil asset forfeiture here in Colorado and require a criminal conviction for governments to be able to steal people's property, or at least in this point, confiscate it, forfeit it. Um, I think they should be convicted criminally before you can take my property away. You can't just accuse me of a crime and then take my money, right? So great bill.
Absolutely.
The fact that they debated it, went over it, and then Representative DeGraff and Senator Baisley are coming back with some amendments to change the bill to make it more likely to pass, I think is probably a good sign that there's a chance that this bill could make it out. We'll see what changes are made to the bill. I'm sure the normal intent would be there. Representative DeGraff wouldn't let them change it too much, I don't think. Keep it as a good pro-liberty bill, but it'll be very interesting to see what amendments come up because this bill was delayed multiple times. I really do applaud the two bill sponsors for trying to do everything possible to get this bill to pass. And if that means delaying it, working with the whips on either side to try and get the votes to get it passed, and offering amendments, working with law enforcement to try and amend the bill to make it a little bit more palatable to them, that's all part of the process there. So interesting to see this whole work out. But folks on this Judiciary Committee and this House Judiciary Committee, you can reach out to them. And I really encourage people email, call the House Judiciary Committee members, tell them to support House Bill 1037. If you do one thing this week, reach out to the committee members of the House Judiciary Committee and tell them to support this bill. I think that'd be a great opportunity, a great win for liberty. Here they are. There's a long list of them. And yeah, there's a chance that this bill can make it out because we have some legislators here who don't like law enforcement, who would love to defund the police. And here's their opportunity by getting rid of civil asset forfeiture. So it could be possibly a good time for pro liberty people to have a victory if this bill passes. What do you think, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's a lot of people on this list that I'm not a fan of, but this is one of those rare topics that we have a little bit of alignment on. So contact a lot of these Democratic senator representatives and see if they can and just let them know and speak your voice. I mean, you never know who you may be able to build a connection on. For example, last year we had a bill that was supposed to expand Cora that was brought by Bob Marshall and Elizabeth Epps. They wanted to, they really wanted to expose a lot of what was going on behind the scenes within the Democratic Party. I mean, that's probably the only time I ever agreed with Elizabeth Epps. Very good chance it's the only time I ever will. Um, so very happy. So you never know who you might be able to influence, is what I'm trying to say. So as much as I cannot stand Lorena Garcia, this might be one of those times where you might be able to talk about the negatives of policing and get her to you know, vote in your favor. Same with Javier Mabry, Chad Clifford, possibly. Am I a fan of either one of those? Nope, but we might be able to get a Liberty win with those three. So, and the others, I like a few of these people. Rebecca Kelty has been a fantastic rep so far. Big fan of Ryan Armagost. Um, and you never know. So, yeah, reach out to these people. Even if they disagree, some of the people in here that might disagree on this individual act, like Rep Armagost, still a big fan of him. But go ahead and reach out. You never know who you're going to influence.
Yeah, and great point there. I'd love to see people reach out to the Republicans on this as well. Armagost represents me in my district, House District 64, where I live, and I'm definitely going to be encouraging him. He was one of Armagost and Gabe Evans voted no on this bill last year, killing civil asset forfeiture reform. This bill could have passed out of committee if it wasn't for them. And of course, word came down from the governor. Governor Polis was 100% against this. We heard that from Representative DeGraff earlier this year. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Strange bedfellows, like you were saying. It's interesting how it all comes together. But Colorado has a good opportunity this year to really have a good pro liberty bill like 1067 pass. Of course, we'll have to see what those amendments look like, but really hopeful, really excited. And Brian, shout out to Brian there in the comments. Brian says he really likes Ken. So Representative DeGraff, he's very based. It would be very, very welcome to Colorado Springs Liberty on the Rocks meetup. Yeah, I hope he can make it down there someday and definitely have some fun there. So great. Good there. Also got a message here from Linda Bottoms, Representative Bottoms' wife. He's trying to get on his computer. There's people at their house and he's having a hard time getting away from. So he'll be joining us probably a little slightly here abbreviated, but he's still planning on joining us shortly. So let's go ahead and move on, see what other bills are going to be heard this week at our state capitol.
Hey, while you're doing that, Brandon, let me just say real quick, if you have not been to Liberty on the Rocks, there's now Liberty Rocks, the first Liberty on the Rocks. The original one meets at Independence Institute here in the Denver area. We have Colorado Springs Liberty on the Rocks, which just started up within the last year or so, and then Brandon started up the Northern Liberty on the Rocks as well. So if you live along the Front Range, you've got a fantastic opportunity to meet liberty-minded people, not just libertarians, just liberty-minded people, Republicans. There's a lot of great people that you never know who you're going to meet, and I know it's growing. In fact, there's a new Granby location for Liberty on the Rocks as well. So if you haven't had the opportunity to go, I highly encourage you to go check out Liberty on the Rocks.
Definitely, yeah. Show up, meet other people, get together in the real world, and just put some plans together to have some good pro liberty movement here in our state of Colorado. So, being heard this Thursday in the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, one of the more ridiculous bills and wildly controversial, believe it or not, bills this year, House Bill 1109, the Gender Identity Certificate of Death. I mean, you can't make this up, people. You can't make this up. They basically want to make it illegal for somebody to misgender somebody on their death certificate. I know people have been talking about this one a bunch. It has been, it has been amended, interestingly enough. So they've erased, as you can see, these little strike throughs, they've erased the identity part. So it has to reflect their gender, not necessarily their gender identity. But of course, there's some nuance to it as well. And there you go, folks. Actually crazy. Now, this bill, they did change the penalty. So it used to be a class two misdemeanor if somebody did misgendered somebody on their death certificate. This bill then now would require the Department of Public Health and Environment to add a gender field to the certificate of death form in the electronic death registration system. So yeah, so they did change the bill, struck out kind of the gender identity part of it, it seems. Let's look at the fiscal note to see if that's been updated at all, and maybe it hasn't because it's still
It,
saying gender identity everywhere.
yeah, everything I saw, they did not get rid of gender identity in the fiscal note. So I think they need to update that a smidge.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting, what this bill would do. But I mean, how crazy is this, folks? People, how crazy is this, right? They're basically trying to say that, yeah, you got to get somebody's gender identity right on a on a death certificate of all places. So
I mean, are
absolutely
they?
crazy.
I mean, I don't think you need to worry about suicidal ideation when somebody's dead. It's just absolutely ridiculous. What a waste of everybody's time. This bill should just get killed. I mean, it also kind of explains when Brandon, you and we went to, I mean, we've talked about this in the past. We went to the egg bill hearing. Kyle Brown was sitting there wearing his little him lapel pin. And for no reason, we all know you're a dude, but it's the virtue signal for stuff like this. It's just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and you can see on this one all the different amendments that were offered as House Republicans were fighting on it. But yeah, I mean, so interesting. The bill's made it all the way through the House with just a few amendments early on and is now going to be in the Senate. So There you go. In the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, my gosh, they hear everything over there, it seems. So crazy, crazy bill, absolute insanity down at the state capitol. But yeah, just wanted to keep people up to date because if you want to testify, if you didn't get a chance to speak on this bill when it was in the House, here's your opportunity what's in the Senate. So that's going to be this Thursday. It looks like they're planning on a lot of people speaking because they don't have any other bills scheduled. They do have a presentation from the Civil Rights Commission of Colorado. So if anybody's interested in that, could be interesting to see what they have to say. Not a fan of them, of course, but could be interesting. But nonetheless, House Bill 1109 being heard this Thursday, March 20th, in Senate Committee Room 352 upon adjournment of the state Senate. So check that one out, people. Testify, speak out if you're interested. But let's move on here to the Health and Human Services Committee.
Hey, Brandon,
Actually, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to point something out, and I kind of want to ask your opinion on this. In years past, State Military and Veterans Affairs Committee has been known as the quote unquote kill committee. I'm seeing a lot of stuff pass this year. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but it seems like a lot of bills are passing through what's called the quote unquote committee. So I'm kind of curious what your opinion of that is. Maybe we can ask
I,
Rep Bottoms now that he's here joining us about this.
Definitely. Let's. We got some great questions already lined up for you. Representative Scott Bottoms, thanks for joining our live stream tonight.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, guys. Yeah, the kill committee mentality is actually a very interesting thing that we've seen transition this session. Um, the states, my I'm on the state civic military affairs. That was the kill committee for a long time. But we've noticed by the way that the Speaker of the House has stacked the committees. So let me back up a little bit. This year we won the Republicans won 3 seats, so we got out of the super minority. When that happened, theoretically, the way that the rules work and the way that the our tradition works is the committees stay the same as far as numbers, except Republicans gain a seat on each committee. Okay. That did not happen this time. The speaker renegotiated all of the committees, super stacked some of the committees, made sure that there could be no, even if there was close calls, there could be no committee that could get a vote through that needed a vote through. In other words, the big gun bill that came through finance last Friday, it came through on a vote of 7-6. That's the closest we've got on any major controversial thing. The Judiciary Committee this year is now I'm sorry, the Judiciary Committee has been super stacked. The Finance Committee is actually the more vulnerable committee, but the Judiciary is the kill committee this year, which is weird because that's not the way it's ever worked in the past. But it is so super stacked that there's no way they're going to be able to get anything through. So it's no longer state civic military affairs. We actually are almost operating like a normal committee. It's strange for me because I'm not used to anything actually being able to go through.
Well, very interesting. Definitely appreciate that insight. I did notice that change as well, that they were kind of spreading out the bills. The bills almost seem to be going to the committee they're supposed to, instead of they would just ram everything into that state Veterans Military Affairs Committee back in the past. But Representative Bottoms, you've been one of our most outspoken advocates for kids, for families, for liberty down at the state capitol. What is the most important thing that people in Colorado need to know about what's happening at the state legislature this year?
Well, the now what normally I would use the term Democrats, but I don't think that's actually the right way to phrase this conversation or to develop this conversation. The Democrat Party in the state of Colorado is not represented in the House. The Senate maybe a little bit more, but not in the House. Okay, there is an ultra leftist Marxist mentality in the state House. All right, they are so far left of even the Democrat Party. The more Democrats are starting to see this and understand this, the more Democrats are pulling away from the Democrat Party. And statistics, I can prove this all day long statistically, and I can also prove it from my own experience kind of anecdotally, but from conversations I'm having. They are the ultra leftist Marxists. They have made it very clear they are so mad that Trump got elected. I mean, they are foaming, rabid, animal mad at the fact that Trump got elected that they are pushing against everything. They have made it very clear they are coming after our children, and they are doing that very strongly. They are taking away parental rights. They're doing that very strongly. The average Democrat out there has no clue, neither does the Republicans. But the Democrat doesn't know what the Democrats are doing to them. And so that's happening in the state. It's in the state house. It's really looking bad. And then obviously they're coming after any kind of free right we have, the Second Amendment, First Amendment. They're trying to shut that down. And they're not hiding like they normally do with nuanced conversations. They are just blatantly coming out and saying, nope, we're coming after everything, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Rep Bottoms, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate coming on, being willing to come on uh, late at 8:30, right before you have to come back to Denver for a very grueling week in the state legislature.
You don't have
Uh,
to remind me.
you're welcome. Um, my question is I'm glad you brought this up. We have a lot of rather crazy progressives in Colorado. This week we saw Rep. Randy Bradley, another fantastic fighter for our liberty, particularly our kids, down at the legislature with you in your caucus. She brought up a bill that was supposed to protect kids, protect kids from rapists, and making sure that rapists go to prison instead of getting let out to be free to do it again. Wanted to We also saw, even as of this afternoon, I doubt you saw it, but Erin Lee, another fighter for our kids, who's not in the state legislature, but she released a screenshot of what appears to be Heidi Beadle, warning her as an Atifa agent that that there are people coming after her, and Erin Lee was very vocal and said, "No, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing." And then the final response you saw was, "Then you're going to be dead." So we're seeing that radical leftist mentality that's willing to attack whoever it is for fighting for their rights. So my question to you is how do we fight back against these people who are so willing to destroy people, if not kill you?
Yeah, so Heidi Beadle is a good example of this. She came after me. It's actually a he, came
Yes.
after me. Like the first week I got into the race and was running as a representative. He put all kinds of horrible things in print. He's also his paper is also the one that was responsible for saying that my church and Focus on the Family were the ones responsible for the Club Q shooting. Okay, Focus on the Family got vandalized. We got broke into, all kinds of things with that. So here's the thing with this. Heidi is an Antifa person. He had made that very clear a long time ago. Let me give you something. I know you guys are getting the message out in very powerful ways. I've seen some of the statistics of how your message is being sent out and how many hits you're getting. You guys are getting some very strong play. The reason I'm saying that is I know I am saying this, and this will get out. Okay, I know what I'm about to say is going to get out there, but I want it to. Do your own research and see if I'm wrong about this. Almost every mass shooting in the last 10 years has been done by somebody in the transgender community. Do your homework on that. I know I will be attacked on that. I'm this hater or whatever the case is. But there are articles after articles after articles talking about this. There was just an article that came out this last week in the New York Post. Look this up. That the most the demographic that is struggling the most in our country with mental health issues, including violent mental health issues, is transgender girls in 18 to 30-year-old age groups. They are the most violent, attacking with mental health group that there is. And they also struggle the highest with suicide, and there's all kinds of stats with this. Okay. So for somebody like Heidi Beadle to come out and go after Brandy is not surprising. They are fitting the mode that has become the transgender ideology. Transgender is an ideology. LGB, sexual preference. TQ plus, ideology. Two total different things, and it's a Marxist ideology also. They cannot have free speech. They cannot have people that can say what they believe. They cannot have people disagree with them. They will shut them down to the point of actually aiming a gun at them and shooting. That is the TQ plus ideology. And we are just allowing this to happen in our society today because we're scared to death to actually deal with mental health. These are mental health issues. Erin Lee is an amazing woman that fights the fight. Her daughter was pushed into the pipeline to have a sex change when she didn't need one, want one, but she was being pushed into that. And Erin, her mother, stepped in the way and stopped the whole thing. Erin is a very strong person, and she's not going to back down from these bully thug transgender ideology people. Neither is Brandy Bradley. Neither am I. This is a blight upon our society. They are attacking our freedoms. They are attacking common sense. They are attacking the reality of who we are as a people, and they will not stop until everybody that disagrees with them is gone. It's the same concept as the Nazis for the Jews in Germany at the time. We will not stop until they are gone. We don't let them have free speech. That's the transgender ideology, and it's wrong, and it needs to be pushed back against. It needs to be pushed back against. It's destroying our society. And I just believe that the average person out there knows it. But they're scared to death to say something because you got the Heidi Beatles that'll threaten you and not get arrested for it. Threaten to kill you and not get arrested for it.
Wow. Wow. Really appreciate your outspokenness, your passion, willing to stand up. Like Michael was saying, you're one of our liberty leaders. You're definitely a fighter out there, and Colorado needs fighters. I think for so long, people have been looking for leadership and people looking for, well, who's out there speaking out? Who's speaking out against this insanity and the stuff that is clearly wrong? And these people who are willing to threaten violence, who's standing up against it? So I really applaud your efforts there, Representative Bottoms. And I'm excited to hear about your governor campaign as well. I know your website just went live. I believe it's scottbottoms.com. So definitely encourage people to check that out. If you're interested in anything Representative Bottoms is saying, it's just scottbottoms.com, but definitely check that out. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about the Liberty Pledge. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but it was crafted between the Libertarian Party of Colorado and Dave Williams at the time, and not just him, but people within the GOP. This idea that we got to come together. We got to bring the pro liberty people across Colorado kind of don't look as much at the party. But if you're a pro-liberty leader and you're running for governor, let's not run a libertarian against you, because then we're just diluting the vote. And we need everybody to come together around our strongest candidates and support them, because that's really the only opportunity we have to win so many of these swing seats and even some of these statewide offices if we're going to win them. So what do you think? Are you familiar with the Liberty Pledge, and would you be willing to sign it?
Oh yeah, sure. I think I've signed it before. In fact, I know I've signed it before. Yeah, I strongly believe that. One of the things that we're seeing, this has always been the case. All right. I'm a very strong conservative. Um, I really believe that most of what I am saying right now can be embraced by Republicans and Democrats both, because I'm really talking about some very common sense things. Colorado has become known for a lot of things that is not Colorado. We used to be known for the mountains and hunting and skiing and hiking and just the amazing beauty of all of this. And now across the United States, we're known as the drug state. We're known as the DEI state. We're known as the CRT state. We're known as the grooming state, the pedophile state, the human trafficking state, the Venezuelan drug state. Why? Because people have allowed this to happen. And we've got to stand up against some of this stuff. I do believe that Democrats and Republicans can both come around this, but I constantly get pushed. But it's been happening forever that I get pushed from Republicans. Oh, you need to come more to the middle. We need to all just get along. Well, which subjects do I come to the middle on? Grooming of children? Do I come to the middle on that one? Mutilating children's bodies and sterilizing them forever? Do I come to the middle on that one? Do I come to the middle on Venezuelan drug gangs taking over apartments in Aurora? Do I come to the middle on that one? Do I come to the middle on aborting babies and murdering babies? Do I come to the middle on that one? Do I come to the middle on CRT or DEI? It's destroying our economy. People can't buy homes because of all of the guidelines and the rules. And then our hiring processes that say it's about equity. In other words, everybody gets to end up at the finish line the same way. I don't think that's what equality is, which is everybody gets to start the same, right? So which one of those things do I come to the middle on? The liberty for people, I'm using your term for the signing of the thing, but liberty for people, where do I come to the middle on that? That we can be some free, not totally free, but some free? Do we come to the middle on, well, let's let all of our Second Amendment rights go, but we're going to hang on to the First Amendment rights? There is no such thing. Once the Second Amendment is done, Fidel Castro takes over Colorado, and we no longer have freedom in Colorado because that's what he did in Cuba. Now I know he's not. It's not going to be Fidel Castro, but it's going to be somebody just like him. Same thing in Venezuela. Same thing in North Korea. When you let them have all your guns, you no longer are the first. So where do I come to the middle on? Which of these issues do I compromise on? If somebody can explain that to me, I'll have the conversation.
I think that's very well said, Rep Bottoms. Uh, First off, I want to say there is a comment in the chat: libertarians support transgender ideology. Absolutely not. Libertarians believe that transgender people shouldn't be thrown in a jail because they're transgender. But that doesn't mean that we support the ideology itself, particularly this communist uh, ideology that's being thrown out there. We just think you shouldn't be thrown in a jail cell for what you do for non-violently. That is all. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Just like any Republican.
yeah. This is the thing with transgenderism. You want to be transgender, go be transgender. You are a free individual within the United States. You can be transgender all day long, but don't you dare touch our kids. You cannot
One,
force our kids to be transgender. You can't force these ideologies in the school. And I've even been gavelled down in the on the floor of the House of Representatives because I don't use their terminology. Well, you can't force my speech just because you want to be something. You can choose to be. I just saw today on the news this lady is identifying as a turtle. Okay, but I don't have to call you a turtle because you are struggling with some mental health issues. And so you can be transgender all day long. You can't force that on me. I'm a Christian. I don't force that on you. I don't force you to not be transgender. I'm a Christian, but I don't force it. I'm a pastor of a church. I can't even force the people in my church to be Christians. How am I going to force anybody else? But what the transgender ideology has done is it says, now you must do what I say. You must use my pronouns. You must allow a man to go into a woman's bathroom. You must allow a man to participate in women's sports. No, that's not okay. You be transgender, but you cannot force that on the rest of us.
absolutely, absolutely. Rep Bottoms, I wanted to ask you. You are also a pastor. Pastor, I wanted to ask you, what is it like to be a full-time pastor while at the same time being a legislator in Colorado? Because it's extremely difficult. There's a lot of things that go into it. I went to a Bible college, so I'm kind of curious myself. How is it being that legislator while still at the same time being the pastor, having to discuss also uh, having to discuss political issues in your church while trying to maintain your 501c3 status as a church, unless you're a 501c4, and then you have a little bit more freedom so you don't lose your tax breaks benefits and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of curious, what is it like kind of parsing those two different things, as well as there's a massive time commitment there for being a pastor, let alone being a legislator at the same time.
Yeah, let me address the tax exempt status first because that's the one that people seem to zone in on, right? We're a 501c3. 501c4 is not actually a full tax exempt. C3 is a different category. Okay. For nonprofits, well, to be a nonprofit, you really are a C3, 501c3. And we are. The thing with being a 501c3 is you're allowed to talk about political things. There's not rules that say you can't. There was the Johnson Amendment that came up that was unconstitutional, that was destroyed when Trump first got into office, but that was an unconstitutional thing also. You're allowed to talk about political issues as a nonprofit. How you endorse and things like that become a little a little more controlled, but I don't endorse anybody. I've never endorsed anybody. There are people that I would lean toward, but I don't even always say that. Um, but here's the thing is I can talk about stuff in the pulpit. The day it really helped me see this is years ago. Al Gore was running for president and he went to TD Jakes' church and he gave a campaign speech in TD Jakes' church. Okay? A campaign speech. I'm running for governor and I have not even given a campaign speech in my church. Okay? So I'll say things. I do address political things as a pastor, but I don't do like what I would consider normal political subjects. Like, I don't, I'm not talking about which taxes you pay or, that kind of thing. I just don't deal with what I actually consider political minutia. But I do deal with subjects that are moral subjects. Abortion is not a political subject. Killing babies is not a political subject unless you are fascist state like Nazism. Then you can kill all the babies you want, and you're politically okay to do so. But abortion is not political. Um, Grooming our children to have transition surgeries at 12 is not political. It is moral. These are moral issues. They are talked about in the Bible, and I'm not going to shy away from them because somebody puts a tag that says they're political. Okay, I'm not going to let everybody else decide um, what parts of the Bible I'm going to speak about or not. They don't have that right. And by the way, to remind people, and I reminded people of this when COVID hit, our church didn't shut down. We didn't mask. We didn't distance. We didn't do all that stupidity that a couple years later, and I talked about it every week. This is not true. It's not right. And people were upset. Oh, no, we're going to kill millions of people. No, you're not. Stop it. Um, then, 3 years later, 4 years later, everybody's like, oh, I guess you were right. Yeah, I knew I was right the first time. We're actually mentioned in the First Amendment. Church is actually mentioned there. McDonald's, not. Okay? Best Buy, not. Church, mentioned in the First Amendment. And so, yeah, they can try to come get me all they want, but and the more we become a Marxist state, I know that I'm in danger because our freedoms are taken away. But none of those, I'm not going to let somebody outside church tell me what I can or cannot say in my church. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's never going to happen. They can call it political speech, not. Now, here's one of the things. Okay, so the government takes away my 501c3. I don't live for the government and I'm not living by the dollar, and that's not what's guiding me. And I tell pastors all the time, if the only way you can operate is under the control of a 501c3, you might reconsider what you think a church is. Okay, I'm not controlled by my 501c3. All right, now the time constraints. It is hugely difficult sometimes to be able to balance this. Pastor's a full-time job. When I say full-time, I mean 24/7. I don't mean, 40 hours a week. But I've also been doing this for 35 years. I know how to manage my time very well. I know how to manage that as a pastor. We have a great staff. They know how to take care of what needs to be taken care of. I do preach on Wednesday nights. I do preach on the weekends. Um, I even said that and I just finished tonight, right before I got on here, is why I was a few minutes late coming on this, is I just finished a 3-hour Bible study we do at my house one Sunday night a month. But I love that stuff. Me preaching in my church is so cathartic, so therapeutic. And there's a spiritual dynamic. When you're speaking the things of God from his word, he will energize you. He'll strengthen you. The Holy Spirit anoints you to do that. And there's times, even just last week, I walked into church on a Wednesday night. I was so tired. I literally am thinking, and I never think this, but I thought, man, I just don't want to go to church tonight, which it's kind of important because I'm the guy speaking. And so I go to church, and by the time I finished service, I was not tired anymore. I was energized. I was pumped up, and I was ready to go again. That's what, that's why I keep pastoring while I'm doing the representative thing. It's actually because I'm a pastor first. But and that's a big question when it comes to winning governor. What do I do with that? Because that does change. And right now my board and I are talking about it. Our church is talking about it. We got a big meeting. We're going to talk about it coming up in a few weeks. But I don't want to leave my church. But as governor, I think I'm going to have to. I've had people say you can do both. I don't know how. But yeah, my church is my come back to sane moments, my puts me right again kind of moments. So good question though. It's being a pastor is time consuming and being a representative is time consuming beyond what most people know on either one.
Absolutely.
Definitely,
Yeah, I'll just
definitely.
say, oh, go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just say this real quick. Back about 2022, my wife went through a bit of a spiritual transition because I simply shared two John MacArthur videos to her, and they were all about Romans 13. And this was in the midst of all the craziness that Newsom was trying to uh, pressure John MacArthur and Grace Community Church down in California with. So it was a very illuminating thing to see. So hearing stories like this that you were not willing to step down, you were not willing to back down from the state during the midst of the COVID craziness. It's really refreshing to hear. So thank you.
You know, something on that too. So when that was happening, I was getting not one church person anywhere was upset at me about this that I heard. I didn't get any emails or anything from a church person that was upset about this, but I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails from pastors and church leaders across the country that were attacking me, saying I was putting people in danger. I wasn't being obedient to Romans 8:13. And here's the reason. They didn't understand Romans 8:13. MacArthur, there's a pastor right up the road from MacArthur that is Hibbs, Pastor Jack Hibbs. These guys have explained it. The best I have ever heard, though, is from a guy named Bill Federer. He works some with Truth and Liberty here in Colorado Springs, but he's based out of Florida. But he has the best teaching I've ever seen on Romans 13, and he explains the pre Saul being king in the Bible and post Saul being king, and how Romans 13 is going back to the pre, which by the way, the founders of our country went to Romans 13 and the pre understanding, the pre Saul being king understanding, and built our government on an understanding of Romans 13 that was before Saul. Most of the societies around the world right now build their government thinking upon a post Saul in the Old Testament Romans 13, and it's an improper way to understand Romans 13. It's just their ignorance, and I had good friends sending me horrible emails, but I did not have one church person send me a negative email. And by the way, our church grew like crazy that first year of COVID because people are driving around going, "No church is open. Hey, that one's open." They don't even know what we are. They don't even know what we believe. You got you got every denomination getting together in every single service because they just wanted to go to church, and the church failed them during that time frame.
100%.
Yeah, very powerful, very interesting. Really appreciate you sharing all of that. Where, where do you see the distinction? Because I know this is a big question for a lot of people out there who maybe aren't quite as spiritually minded, but the distinction between church and state. Because, as a pastor and as somebody who's living in this world so much, how do you separate that in your mind? Kind of relating a little bit to Michael's question, but this question is more for people who are or your potential voters, right? People who are going to be looking to seeing your name on the ballot, reading about you. How would you answer that question in terms of the distinction between the church and the state, the different roles they play, and where does that separation exist?
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I think people are more educated overall about it today than used to be. But here's the concept: church, the phrase separation of church and state is nowhere in the Constitution. Okay, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to a friend of his, and he used that term in that letter. But what he was saying is the state has to stay out of the church's business. And then he uses the term separation of church and state. And then so many people use that term completely wrong. And they say, well, it's in the Constitution, all this stuff. It's just complete ignorance that people say this stuff. They haven't actually studied anything. Read the Constitution before you start saying stuff's in it. I've been saying that about the Bible for years. I have people all the time, well, doesn't the Bible say this? No. Well, the Bible says this. No, it doesn't. Even Mark Twain did that. He would use he would say, well, like the good book says, and then he would say a modern colloquialism, and he was making fun of people that didn't actually know that the Bible didn't say it, but they were using it as a Bible phrase. Mark Twain did that a lot. So here's the thing: separation of church and state means something very simple. It says in the First Amendment, the state needs to stay out of the church's business. That's all it means. It does not mean the church needs to stay out of the state's business. In fact, every one of our founding fathers, and I have book after book after book that quotes these guys that shows this, but people don't do their homework. They don't actually know what these guys said. They said our government will not exist properly unless we have God in it, unless we are being following God, unless we have the Bible, unless we were people of prayer. Most of the early presidents, and George Washington was the most of this, he called our country to a time of prayer and fasting and repentance time after time after time. Thomas Jefferson did it all the way down to Abraham Lincoln even did this. We even see where Truman did it, where they were calling people to prayer and fasting. Okay. Separation of church and state was Thomas Jefferson saying the state needs to stay out of the church's business. There cannot be a state church. There cannot be a state controlled church. There cannot be a state sponsored church. And I believe that very strongly. But at the same time, the church needs to be constantly in the state. The state will not exist the way it's supposed to. All of our founding fathers said this, unless we follow the Bible and we let the church be our guide. And that's where people are getting it just so off base.
And that's what's interesting to me as a Christian. I mean, within some Christian circles, Christian nationalism is something that's popping up lately, and I think that a lot of people are trying to turn Christians into a political bloc. And what I mean by that is like a Christian group that like more or less calls themselves Christians, but really they just want to identify as Christians versus like actual Christians just getting together, speaking out and saying, hey, this is wrong, or this is right, this is what the government should do, or this is what the government should not be doing as a whole, and being guided on a biblical level. And I think that's very interesting to see. So I appreciate you calling that out, Rep Bottoms.
Let me say this, and this is probably not the wisest thing I should say as a gubernatorial candidate, but here's the reality. There's only three people on the Republican side that officially declared for governor. Okay. Senator Mark Baisley, sheriff, I just forgot his name, but he's sheriff.
Bill Masters?
Yes, up north. I talked to him Friday for a long time. Great guy. Both of these men are good Christian men. They're good men. Okay. They're common sense, grounded individuals. All right. As a Christian, I think you're supposed to vote biblical principles, but that doesn't mean you're going to arrive at the same conclusion on everything. Now, when it comes to grooming our children, you should arrive at the biblical conclusion that's wrong, right? But uh, a Christian can vote for one of the other candidates and say, well, I think he's a good guy. He's a Christian. I like what he believes. I have no problem with that. I don't want them to. I want them to vote for me. But with that being said, just because we're a Christian does not mean we're a monolith or a voting block. But I do believe as Christians, you should first vote. You do have a responsibility to vote. Only 60% of the church voted in the last election, and that was 20% higher than the election before. That's crazy. Okay. As a Christian, I think you're supposed to vote. As a Christian, I think you're supposed to vote biblical principles. But that doesn't mean you're going to vote the exact same way on everything. Let's say when it comes to taxes being used for this or for this, two Christians can disagree on that. But there's some subjects I don't think you can disagree on because they're specifically stated in the Bible. Okay. So yeah, I don't think that, I think you got to be careful when you say the church is always going to vote this way. I don't think that's legitimate. There's just too much personality and too much differences and things like that in the church. But the big moral ones, you better be careful because you will stand before God for these someday.
100%.
Yes, definitely. Do you have a few more minutes? I know you've had a long day there. Do you have a few more
I'm good.
minutes, Representative?
Yeah,
Perfect.
go ahead.
One of the big questions, we did an interview earlier this year talking about what's going on at the state legislature. And I kind of wanted to follow up because you had mentioned in there a letter that many of the legislators were crafting to the Denver mayor, Denver City Council about how dangerous it is around the state capitol. And that letter's since come out. But can you just fill people in? Because, we have a lot of people watching from across Colorado, and a lot of people, they hear about Denver and they hear the hyperbole and they say, oh, it can't be that bad. But then you see the stats and you see all of these stories coming out every day about shootings and stabbings. things like this. But what's it like for people out there outside of the state capitol, and how is it so bad? How is it so bad that you actually have to have legislators reaching out to the Denver government asking for them to do better job of keeping this area safe?
Yeah, this is actually a much bigger issue than most people know. So so my office is in the Capitol. Um, a lot of our legislators, not senators, but representatives, they have offices across the road, okay? In this big building across the road from the Capitol. It's literally just walk right across the road. But there's so much drugs, so much crime, so much homelessness everywhere, all over the place, that representatives walking across the road, Republican and Democrat, doesn't matter. When somebody's tweaking out on drugs in the middle of the road, they don't ask what your party affiliation is. But this happens all the time. They've been yelled at, shoved, spit on, um, cussed. We have video. In fact, I think you have video, or you were trying to get video. They're sitting there smoking crack on the steps of the Capitol. State police is right there. They're smoking crack right on the steps. Nobody's doing anything. There's people walking around naked. They had a protest Friday at the Capitol, and we're up on the second floor, which is it's a lot higher than most second floors. The Capitol's a tall building. We looked out the window, and there's a few people, like 100 people protesting. I think it was veterans against Trump or something like that. We could only see a few of them, and then there's this woman walking by naked. Nobody's doing anything. Her top's hanging out. Nobody's doing anything. This is Colorado. This is Denver now. It's not Colorado. It is Denver now. It's very difficult to drive into the Capitol. I drive every day from Springs. It's very difficult to drive to the Capitol and not see somebody either active. Well, I see it every morning. Somebody's taking drugs. I see that in 4 or 5 different places. Actively smoking crack, 4 or 5 teenagers, 10 teenagers hanging together, and they're all passing the tinfoil around, all this stuff. I see that every day, but oftentimes there's somebody tweaking right there on the sidewalk, and they'll just step right out into traffic. Now, the drivers of Colorado, they could be Formula One drivers. They are so trained to avoid and to steer, and it's like this ultimate police driving course you have to take called Denver. And then someone will just step out in traffic and just walk across 2 or 3 lanes in some kind of drug induced state. Nobody's doing anything about this stuff. They have these motorcycle races around Denver at night. I've been there late where I get out of the Capitol at 1 in the morning, and these cafe racers are racing like 50 or 60 of them at a time, racing all over downtown. You don't see anybody, you don't see any police presence or whatever. They're all over the place. The homelessness is everywhere. People are stacked up in parks and every business front and everything. And places that are very nice apartment buildings and condos that have been built over the last 10 to 15 years, trying to make downtown awesome. The doorways are just piled up with homeless people and piled up with trash. If people think I'm making this up, drive up to Denver and drive around. I suggest you do it in the daytime. You will be accosted if you do it at night. Denver has become a dangerous place. I used to take my kids all the time down 16th Street Mall when they were in junior high. My kids are all grown now. I would take them down there. We would love to go down to 16th Street at nighttime, and we'd go eat and go to the movies or do something, have a good time. My kids loved it. We loved it. I wouldn't take anybody. I wouldn't take armed personnel, which you can't be in Denver, but I wouldn't take armed personnel down 16th Street now because you're going to get stabbed or shot at it every single week. And then our governor has the audacity to stand up at the State of the State 2 months ago and said crime is going down in Denver. He is lying. It is not going down in Denver. I can send you a stat sheet that shows we're number one in like 10 different crime categories. We're number one in the nation. That's including Detroit. That's including Chicago. That's including Los Angeles. That's including New York. And we're number one in Denver, Colorado, or in the state of Colorado. And then like fourth, fifth, and sixth in 10 other categories. It's scary. And then our governor says crime is going down. It is not.
It's absolutely disgusting what's going on in Denver. Last time I went to the Capitol to testify, I got spit on by a homeless person. The day before, Brandon and I actually met at the Independence Institute, walked to the Capitol together, and we saw human feces on the sidewalk. So it's disgusting and it's extremely disappointing to see what is going on in our state capital. It's disgusting to see what you guys have to deal with on a daily basis. Just trying to do your jobs and dealing with these individuals. But
I think it would be hard pressed to walk more than 2 or 3 blocks and not see human feces. I would say it's almost impossible. I can't. I haven't walked my first year as a representative. I would walk down because I love to just walk around downtown. I go to a little restaurant or a coffee shop or do something, and within 3 months, 4 months, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's getting so bad, and it's even way worse now. A few years later than it was then. Downtown is just not safe, but it's because our mayor is saying, well, we're a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary for what? Everything but common sense. We're a sanctuary for everything. And it makes us more and more dangerous. And then our attorney general is saying the same thing. Weiser, he's running for governor. He's saying the same thing. Well, we're a sanctuary city. We're going to do all this. Now Governor Polis is kind of backing off from that because remember he wants to be president. But he was saying the same thing. There's no crime, there's no issues, there's no Venezuelan drug gangs. We're a sanctuary city. And now all of a sudden he's like, oops, Gavin Newsom is making gains on me, so I better start acting like a moderate. But I'm telling you, downtown is bad. If anybody listening to this is think I'm lying, just come to downtown and walk around. I don't suggest you walk around, but you're going to have to walk around to see it. So
absolutely. I mean, with everything going on with Denver's plans to create a transit-oriented community, yeah, you're going to be forced to walk around and mingle with the feces on the ground. It's absolutely horrible, and you know that they're not going to do anything about it either. So it's just going to create a more dangerous place for Coloradans. My last question for you, excuse me,
Governor,
Rep
you say it.
Bottoms.
Say
What?
it. You said it. Governor.
Governor Bottoms. Let's go with it. All right, Governor Bottoms. This is a question from the chat. What can we do to discourage the conservative exodus from Colorado?
So that is a major deal. In fact, I just had a meeting last night with a business owner that does a lot of business, a lot of amazing business. I won't tell you what arena he is in because he didn't give me permission. I guess I could, but I'm not gonna. But he does. He has a lot of major. If I started naming the companies that use him for product and stuff like that, you would recognize every company. These are major companies, and he does business for them. He's moving to Wyoming. When I saw him last night, he had just come back from Wyoming to look for property. He's got to move a major organization to Wyoming. I don't even know how he's going to do it. In my mind, the type of equipment and tools and everything in his warehouses and stuff, I don't know how he's going to do it. But he's moving to Wyoming because he cannot operate his business in Colorado. They are the laws that we're making in the capital attack him constantly. Businesses are leaving Colorado like crazy. We tried to pass a bill, well, the Democrats did pass it 2 weeks ago, talking about how do we prop up restaurants because they're leaving Colorado. And I got up and said, instead of trying to prop them up with fake temporary things, why don't we just stop kind of to control them? Stop controlling them. Stop being Marxist state. That's how you keep businesses in your state. Stop being Venezuela. Stop being Cuba. Stop being North Korea. And it's amazing how businesses will stay. If we just took some of the constraints off, here's one of the biggest one is we are attacking housing and we are attacking all of the oil and gas industry. This is why housing has been so bad over the last few years because we're doing things that keep homeowners like, so let's say I live in my house. I'm gonna eventually pay my house off. And I may want to move into another house and rent this house out. Okay. Right now, it's almost impossible to do that because of all the rules and regulations. And most of your mom and pop renters, maybe they own a house or two or a duplex or something, they're being forced out. They cannot do it. They're stopping this. Okay, stop putting the controls, stop putting the regulations, stop putting the taxes, stop putting the fees, stop putting the DEI stupidity in the higher government organizations that cause problems in the lower organizations. Stop this stuff and you'll keep businesses in Colorado. Stop making it punitive to own property and business in Colorado. I just had this conversation a couple hours ago with somebody. The average Colorado voter thinks they still have enough hope and I think a little bit of naivete to say They think that the average politician really at the end of the day is not that bad of a guy or girl, and they're probably trying to do their best, but they just make mistakes. That is not true. Many of our politicians are intentionally trying to destroy business in Colorado. Our governor said it. He does not want the World Economic Forum is who sets his agenda through the Governors Association. He has said we do not need to own property in Colorado. We do not need to own cars in Colorado. Let's all just, if you have to own a car, own an electric car, right? They're trying to shut business down in Colorado because they want it all to be owned by the state. They ran a bill 2 years ago to say government has first right of refusal on your property, your house, your business, your warehouse, your land. Why? The governor wants the government to own all the property. So do a lot of the representatives. They want the government to own the property. That's why they're doing all this stuff. Some people say, well, they're just causing some problems, but they don't realize how bad. No, they realize how bad because they're trying to shut down individual property ownership and business ownership in Colorado. The government needs to own everything, which, by the way, there are places that does happen. North Korea, China, government owns all the stuff. Russia, for years, the government owned all the stuff. Now it's owned by a bunch of oligarch gangsters. So much better. But that's what's going on in Colorado is we don't want businesses. We don't need you. We'll do it ourselves. The government will do it. Because we've got to wake up and see some of this stuff because we're losing our state in the process.
Wow. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate calling it like it is, not holding back that passion, that leadership. I think a lot of people are looking for that. So I'm really excited to follow the progress of your campaign over the next year and a half. But last question for you, Representative Bottoms. We have a lot of people watching this live stream every week to learn about what they can do to have a voice at our state legislature, at our state capitol. So, what is your advice? What are your suggestions for people who want to have a voice, who want to stand up, who want to speak out, who want to get involved at the legislative process? How can they be more effective to do that?
So I think one of the things you have to do is you have to be educated. Okay, you have to be. Now, there's a bunch of ways to do that. If you are very proactive and you know how to manage, get around, navigate some of the stuff that's going on, you can stay connected on the state website. You can see what bills are coming up. You can see who's doing what. That is a difficult process, even for us in the building every day. It is a difficult process to keep up with the whole machine and everything that's happening. There's other ways to do it at like a once removed level, but it's still very effective. Stay connected with groups like yours. Listen to them regularly. Pay attention to what you guys are putting out. And there's other great groups like you guys that are putting out some really good information. Get on email list of guys like me. You can go to my website and you get on my email list, and I put out a weekly email that tells you this is what happened this week in the legislature, and also these are some things coming up. I'll throw some of that stuff in there every now and then, especially on the bigger stuff. And then there's other groups, there's other representatives that do that. Our Republican caucus puts out like a weekly email, and they kind of give some updates about it. It's a little limited, but they do some things. Get on these kind of things. Over time, you'll learn which ones are the most beneficial. You know what I do is I just absorb everything, and then after a while, I'm like, I don't need to hear from you anymore. I don't need to because you're not saying anything new, or you. But then I hone in on the ones that are that are given the right information and the most amount of information. So do that. That's kind of the next level. First, get involved with the actual state website. But man, that is a big animal to try to track down. But get on the right email list, get on the right informational lists. Colorado Union of Taxpayers is a great one. Liberty Scorecard is a great one. There's some good ones out there. Independence Institute has some good stuff. Common Sense Institute, they kind of are just about some specific topics and things, but you can learn a lot if you get enough information coming in. Okay. And then you figure out which ones are pertinent and which ones aren't. The next thing is really try to once you're engaged and you know what's going on. Like if you get on my email list, you'll know, okay, this bill is coming up, or come and testify on it. Come to the Capitol and testify. Um, First, it's good for you. I think it's engaging. I think it's educational when you come to the Capitol and testify and you say, well, I can't get there. Let's say somebody listening is in Grand Junction. Okay. Well, I can't drive up there. I totally understand that because you're only going to get 2 minutes. You drive 4 hours so you can talk 2 minutes, but you can go online and do it too. And you can speak online. And so those kind of things. And then I want to add another level, which is not your question, but it is the same subject. Get involved in your local area doing things. Run for school board. I think school board is the biggest battleground right now in the state. It's not at the legislative level. Okay. It's school board. Run for city council, run for county commissioner, make some things known. Go to school board meetings, even if you don't run for school board. Go to the school board meetings and listen to what's going on. If you hear they're letting first graders check out pornographic books, go ask them about it. Don't take somebody's word. Go ask them. Get engaged. Talk. The biggest thing is don't just sit on the sidelines and complain about what's going on the field. Get out on the field, then you've got a right to talk about something. And always, always, always vote. You've got to vote.
Wonderful. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. It was awesome, awesome information. Really look forward to watching this again, and I'll post this clip all over social media starting tomorrow. So people share it out there. You can revisit this. But yeah, any final thoughts, final word there, Representative Bottoms?
Yeah, I want to thank Michael for calling me governor. And again, guys, keep doing what you're doing. I do like the fact that we kind of are on the same page on most things. But regardless of who you agree with or disagree with, get your voice heard. Keep doing what you're doing. The only way that we're going to be a free state is when Free State Colorado is espousing these views. So keep talking, keep getting people engaged, encourage somebody else. You guys hear somebody that says, "Man, I'd like to do that podcast thing." Okay, do it. Do it. There's nothing stopping you. Get your voice out there, and that's the big thing. Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. Great to hear from you, Governor Bottoms. Appreciate everything. Appreciate the time, especially late on a Sunday night after you had a 3-hour Bible study and you preached this morning. So thank you
Yeah,
very much. I'm
no problem. I
very
love it.
grateful of your time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Wonderful. All right, take care. Wow. That was awesome, Michael. I mean, that was so interesting, so much information, and I just really appreciate Representative Bonham's ability to say these things that I see other Republicans, politicians, even libertarians who are dancing around these issues and are afraid to say certain things. But Scott Bottoms does not have that issue. He's not afraid to say what he believes, and it's really impressive.
He's so bold about it, and I love his almost sarcastic energy too. It's so much fun. I love that he's not afraid to really say it how it should be, and we're grateful that we do have a select group of people down at the state legislature like Rep Luck, Rep DeGraff, Rep Bottoms, Rep Brandley, Rep Armagos. These people aren't afraid to really take it to these politicians that want to strip you of your human liberty. And I'm so grateful for their voice.
Oh, 100%. So grateful for their voice, grateful for them keeping up the fight, keeping that flame of liberty alive. And how cool is it that they were reaching out here to the liberty community and being able to talk to everybody and answer questions from the chat. Such a fun time. But we do have more bills to talk about. I know we're running a little long here, but you still got some time, Michael, to we could fly through these last ones, not too many of them.
Oh, absolutely. Let's knock these out.
Perfect, people. So we're not done yet. Stay tuned. Still got 46 people on the chat there. We're going to quickly go through the rest of the bills being heard this week. So the last one we talked about was the gender identity certificate of death. This Thursday, March 20th, in the Health and Human Services Committee. Just wanted to bring this one up for you real quick because we talked about licensing laws earlier, obviously a big issue, but Senate Bill 152, healthcare practitioner identification requirements. I mean, this is just another one of those things where it's not the role of government. It's not the most extreme bill we've seen, but I just want to bring it up because it's important to understand the mindset of the political class, the mindset of these people down at the state capitol who say, well, here's the problem. Here's our problem in society is that we need to have more licensing. We need to have more certificates. We need to make sure that the state government is requiring the affirmative display of a practitioner specific state issued license, certificate, or registration on their name tag. We need to have better identification requirements for these licensed healthcare professionals. And it's just like, come on, people. You think this is the problem in our society, that this is what's going on? And it just shows that the state's grip on our healthcare, the state's grip on our communities. And just want to at least bring this up. Not that we have to spend any time on this, but any thoughts on this one?
Uh, Not a ton. I mean, it's additional requirements that aren't needed. I'm pretty sick of. I mean, Frizzell's always a disappointment. We talk about the wonderful leaders like Governor Bottoms. I'm just gonna start calling him Governor Bottoms from here on out. Uh, Rep DeGraff, Rep Luck, Armacost, Minority Leader Winner. That's another fantastic Liberty leader down at the House. This Lisa Frizzell is always a disappointment. Good news, you don't see a prime sponsor from the House of Representatives in there, but Frizzell is always one of those individuals who time and time disappoints me with a lot of the bills that she's sponsors. So, uh, as you're saying, this should be another easy no vote. We don't need more and more requirements on our healthcare practitioners, making it harder and harder to um, help people live a thriving life that they choose to live.
100%. So just moving on, the last few bills we want to talk about, people. Now, this is like the end of the week. It's towards the end of the live stream, but these are three of the worst bills, three of the biggest bills going on in our state capitol this week that you need to be aware of, people. So this is in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee, House Committee Room 112, meeting at 1:30 this Thursday. So check it out. First one we want to talk about is House Bill 1262. So, folks, not only are they trying to take your guns away, but they're trying to regulate and control private security officers. That's right. They only want people who get permission of the state to be able to act as certified licensed private security employees. Now, this is so egregious. This is so ridiculous because then you see where this is going, right? You see where this is going, folks, where they want to take a gun ownership away from just average everyday people. Then they want to turn it over to these licensed, regulated private security officers that the state can decide who gets the security service, who's allowed to do this and who's not. So this is a horrible bill. Marbury is a card-carrying member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He is a socialist first and a Democrat second. If you pay attention to his social media posts, you can clearly see that. Weissman has never met a regulation or a law that he doesn't like. This guy totally believes in this managed society, a bureaucracy society where every action you take has been approved by somebody else. So this is bad news, folks. It's horrible stuff. Really hope there's some bad stuff out there. So regulate private security officers and agencies. House Bill 1262. Terrible, terrible bill. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
If you've got time, go down there and oppose this. I mean, it's another massive government overreach, and you couldn't have said it better. Mabre is one of those Democratic Socialists of America supporters first before he's even a Democrat. As I said before, they're the same. These are the same people that support Antifa, the same people that are threatening the life of Aaron Lee. So, uh, yeah, go down there and speak your mind. And if you have the opportunity, uh, send an email. Tell these people, no, we don't want this. This is not for Colorado. This is not going to make Colorado a safer place when we're already the seventh most dangerous state in the country.
Right. Increasing the cost to be for security, making it more difficult to get security in a state, like you just said. I'm really glad you brought that up, Michael. In a state that is suffering under this horrible, horrible crime. Uh, epidemic. So Thursday in the Business Labor Affairs and Labor Committee, that'll be an interesting one to tune in. At the very least, you can listen in and find out that information. Now, in that same committee, of course, just as Representative Bottoms was saying earlier, they want to go after landlords again. These politicians, like Nikita Ricks, thinks it's her role as a politician to get in that way of that relationship between a landlord and a renter. So they want to change how security deposits are done. I mean, are you kidding me, people? If I have an agreement with somebody else, that's between me and them. We don't need this ridiculous, heavy-handed. Look at this. Look how long this goes on. Look at all this stuff. They have all these crazy regulations. Crazy regulations. How long is this information here? This is just the bill summary, and it's already like too much to read because we're so late on time. But how ridiculous is this, people? They want to basically say that security deposit can only be 1 month's worth of rent legally. You can't ask for more than 1 month's worth of rent as a security deposit. and then they can pay it in multiple installments, and they can do this and they can do that, and it's going to be harder to get people kicked out. Of course, that's the whole idea, is the state managed affordable housing scheme. So bad news, another attack on the rights of property owners. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is just an absolutely absurd law. They're just trying to make it harder for this is going to hurt families the most because a lot I mean most people who are landlords are not necessarily your, you know, your big black rocks. They're your regular your neighbors, uh yeah, your neighbors across the street who might have an extra home or two that they're leasing out to somebody. So this is going to make it even harder for families to thrive and survive in a market that's harder and harder to live in Colorado.
Yep, but then they'll just say, see, this is why we need more state intervention in the economy. This is why we need more state controlled and owned affordable housing, because these landlords and private property owners are failing to provide affordable housing for people. Well, yeah, because you're passing all these ridiculous regulations, restrictions, laws, fees, taxes, you name it. It makes it impossible for these landlords and property owners to keep up. So bad news, folks. I mean, people need to understand how bad it is out there. But I did want to bring up this last bill that's being heard this week. We wanted to bring up, this is House Bill 1291, definitely been in the news. Horrible bill, Transportation Network Company Consumer Protection. Now, we've all seen news stories. Of course, there's people masquerading as drivers for Lyft or Uber that commit crimes, that do bad things. There's criminals out there doing all these different things out there. But check this out. These legislators want to entirely create a new system of state control and regulation from the state of Colorado on private rideshare companies. So it goes on and on and on. But I at least just want to highlight here real quick this thing. Before each prearranged ride, so this is every single ride that driver would take, the company would have to verify that the driver providing the ride is the same driver through these different methods. They'd have to have an in-vehicle dash camera, a live side self-identification photograph or video, biometric verification by fingerprint or optical scan, or another method out there. So, I mean, this is crazy. It's totally ridiculous, and it's a total overreach by the government to basically make it impossible for rideshare companies to operate, to make a profit. I mean, why would they even stay in Colorado? So bad news. And it's, of course, you'll see all the news stories out there, people, these legislators saying how they're going to protect people, they're going to protect women, they're going to stop these criminals from committing the crimes that are already illegal. So we just need one more regulation, just need one more restriction, one more law, and eventually it'll solve all this issue. So bad news, folks. What are your thoughts, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I found it very interesting this week. I don't know how many of you pay attention to Rep. Brandy Bradley on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call the platform these days. But after her bill that we discussed with Rep. Brandy Bradley on this channel a few weeks ago to protect child rape victims was killed. It was killed particularly by one of the individuals that did that was Rep. Lorena Garcia, and she said she was a victim. And this is the shocking thing about this. Her excuse for killing the bill was she's a victim of child rape, yet she would never want to sentence her victim um, to prison because she couldn't do that to her own victim. So instead, her goal is to go ahead and leave child rapists on the street to do it to to do it to other children, to which is absolutely abhorrent and a disgusting thing to say to as an excuse me, and a disgusting excuse to protect actual monsters who are going to harm children for the rest of their lives. Yet when she sent out a tweet, she absolutely railed her. But one of the tweets that she presented was a picture of Rep. Lorena Garcia supporting this bill holding a sign that says "Ride share safety now." So if she's for safety in this instance, why isn't she for safety for child rape victims and innocent children who did absolutely nothing wrong? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves, why something like this is something that's so critical, yet we can't protect children from rape.
Wow. That is such a great point. I'm glad you bring it up because, yeah, tune in Thursday, folks. Listen to the testimony, listen to the bill sponsors. They're going to come out, slap each other on the back that they're going to protect women. But at the same time, just 1 week ago, this past week, they killed a bill that would have put child rapists in jail and ensured they got jail time. So it just shows, Michael, it's all political. They don't mean what they say. They don't care. It's just excuses after excuses, and they're not interested in actually going after the real bad guys out there. So absolutely insane, absolute insanity. But folks, don't go anywhere yet. But wait, there's more. There's more. So these are the bills we've been tracking all legislative session, and of course, it is St. Patrick's Day on Monday, so we had to have a little leprechaun theme there, drinking his green beer. So we're going to talk about some of the bills, the biggest bills. We're going to talk about that bill actually. We're going to fly through these, but these are the bills we've been paying attention to, the bills we've been watching. Some of them we talked about tonight, others we've been talking about in previous weeks, others haven't even been heard yet. But these are some of the biggest bills during the legislative session. We're going to give you a status update. We're going to tell you which ones have been killed, which ones have passed, which ones are scheduled, and when they're scheduled. So you ready, Michael? We'll fly through these.
Let's go, Brandon. I'm excited for this lightning round.
Lightning round. And I'm going to fly through them. So just jump in, interrupt, because I just want to fly through them. But you want to talk about any of them, please do.
Absolutely.
That's the rules of lightning round. Perfect. So, House Bill 1005, tax incentive for film festivals. This is a misguided attempt to give $35 million in tax credits to the Sundance Film Festival to bring them to Boulder, Colorado. Did pass the state house, unfortunately, is now on to the Senate, has not been assigned a date yet. House Bill 1010, the absolutely ridiculous, economically ignorant, prohibiting price gouging on sale of necessities was amended, did pass the House this last week, is going to the Senate and the Business, Labor, and Technology Senate Committee. So we'll be keeping you up to date on when that one ends up getting scheduled. Law enforcement whistleblower protection. Meant to talk about this. Oh, we did talk about this one.
We
Gosh,
did.
that was such a long time ago. House Bill 1031 being heard this Tuesday. House Bill 1040, the nuclear energy as clean energy resource. So probably the only bill we can celebrate making it to the governor's desk so far this year, I would say. A good bill. They've been trying for years to get nuclear energy a little bit more of a fair shake in our state government, state energy policies. So nuclear energy will be a clean energy resource as soon as Governor Polis signs that bill or lets it become law. So he doesn't even need to sign it, but I'm sure he will. Okay, so that one's all the way through the process. Talked about criminal asset forfeiture, Kindergraph's great bill to get rid of civil asset forfeiture in Colorado being heard this Wednesday. The tenant landlord law enforcement bill, where you're sicking the attorney general on landlords and getting involved in their disputes, is on in the Senate Committee on Judiciary. They did pass it. They amended it. They've sent it to appropriations. No data signed there. Senate Bill 3, semi-automatic firearms, the biggest bill of the session. Everybody's been paying attention to the anti-gun bill. Of course, this last week, Friday, it passed the House Finance as amended. It's gone to Committee on Appropriations. Gosh, what a dream if it dies in appropriations because they don't have the money. Now it'd be a dream come true. People, you know, get your four-leaf clover out, get your pot of gold, do whatever we can. But anyway, Senate Bill 33, Rep. Weinberg, Republican Weinberg's misguided attempt to create prohibitions on new pharmacy liquor licenses. Absolutely bad bill from a Republican who loves his Liberty Scorecard score. Bad bill there, Senate Bill 33. It did make it through the Senate. It is now in the House Committee on Business Affairs. They actually passed it, so now it's to House Appropriations. So it looks like that one might become law. We'll see if any other amendments come through. Senate Bill 86, definitely put this call to action out earlier. The social media protection bill, basically where they want to turn social media companies into arms of the state, monitoring and tracking and providing all these reports on our behavior to the state government, is being heard on the House floor Monday, St. Patrick's Day starting at 10 a.m. So please reach out to your state rep in the House there. Tell them to oppose Senate Bill 86.
Think of
Senate
it
Bill
this
70.
way. It's the Colorado Patriot Act for social media Patriot Act, if you want to call it that. So tell people to email your reps.
Definitely, 100%. Good call. Senate Bill 79, the regulation of Bitcoin ATMs, did get through the Senate, is in the House, going to House Finance. Senate Bill 77, another bill trying to get people involved in. Reach out to your rep on this one. This is a bill to modify the Colorado Open Records Act, CORA. If people don't understand what a great tool CORA is to give regular citizens the ability to understand what our government is doing, you need to know how important it is. This bill makes it harder to get those open record requests, makes it more expensive, lets the government take more time to drag their feet to get you these open record requests, and even provides a special carve out for people like Kyle Clark in the mainstream media who have a special ability to still get those open record act requests within 3 days, while the rest of the public has to wait. So, absolutely horrible bill. Matt Soper needs to either change to be a Democrat or resign in shame. That guy is getting on my nerves big time. Definitely a thorn in the side of liberty here in Colorado. Senate Bill 77, horrible bill. I actually spoke on this bill this last Monday, a week ago at the state capitol, and definitely I shared that on my YouTube channel if you're all interested. So bad bill there. The Kratom bill, Senate Bill 72, big bill, of course, another Soper bill. We were beating up Pelton on that one as well, Byron Pelton. That one did pass. The Senate Finance Committee is on to appropriations. It hasn't gone through yet. There's no date yet. Hopefully, it gets killed in appropriations. Somebody said that it will, but we'll see. Really hope that one dies. Kratom should not be regulated by our state government. Anyways, let's move on here. House Bill 106, 1006, school district solar garden lease term allowing school property to become affordable housing or solar gardens. That did pass the House, is now in the Senate, going to the Senate Education Committee on April 2nd. We'll talk about that one again next week. House Bill 1133, we talked about earlier, the requirements for sale of firearms did pass the House, is now in the Senate. But people, please, if you're a pro gun, speak out, show up on that one. House Bill 1133 this Tuesday. House Bill 1127, relatively good bill to register, allow Coloradans to register and drive surplus military vehicles. That bill made it through two committees, now into appropriations. House Bill 1093, limitations on local anti-growth land use policies. Absolutely terrible. Another example of Denver politicians overriding local governments who want to manage their own growth policies that maybe the voters support. But hey, the big politicians in the metro area want to force massive growth, high density housing along transit corridors, this whole bad news stuff onto local communities that don't want it. Unfortunately, that is going to be heard here on the House floor on March 17th, Monday. I'm really hoping the Republicans vote against this one. We definitely need to have people calling them out if they don't. The Republicans in the House need to understand that people are watching them on this one. House Bill 1113 to ban grass, non-native grass in apartment complexes is made it through, is going to be in the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee on March 27th. Bad bill. And that's the Senate committee, so it already passed the House. It is going to be in the Senate.
And this is one that it's just a little pet peeve of mine, but this one is a little bit near and dear to my heart just because I love growing grass. I love mowing my lawn. Uh, I absolutely cannot stand that they are trying to tell property owners what they can or cannot grow on their own property. It's absolutely ridiculous. It seems like very minor, but it's an absolute infringement on property rights. So if you guys can tell them no, this is absolutely absurd, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. Bad bill there. We'll talk about that one again next week. House Bill 1100, requirements for filling certain vacancies in offices. This is Representative Luck's bill to expand how vacancy elections are conducted, change up the process a little bit. Of course, vacancy elections have been um, just looked down upon by everybody. The Republicans, the Democrats, nobody seems to be happy with the vacancy process. So hopefully there will be some movement on this. I'm hoping Rep Luck's bill gets a fair shake. That bill is going to be introduced is in the House, has not been assigned to a committee yet, which isn't a great sign, but nonetheless, maybe she's working on the other side. So moving on there. County lodging tax expansion bill, House Bill 1247. So this is going to allow local counties to put tax increases up to the voters to put on hotels to increase their lodging tax. So, bad news. They want to increase taxes. Of course, it's already so expensive to get a hotel in Colorado's mountain communities. This would potentially make it even more. So, being heard Wednesday, April 2nd. The Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, House Bill 1239, really dumb bill. Of course, doesn't do half of what you think it does. Passed through judiciary, is now under appropriations in the House. Talked about 1238, the gun show requirements bill. That bill being heard this Tuesday. Really hoping people will speak out against that one. House Bill 1203, misbranding cultivated meat products as meat. This one's a bipartisan effort to prevent lab grown meat and sell cultivated meat to be called uh, organic meat or just meat in general. So, there's some interest in this one. I know a lot. I saw a lot of people on social media this week, a lot of liberty-minded Coloradans who support this bill because they believe in truth in advertising, or they like the idea that this lab-grown meat's nasty and people should be warned. Not necessarily the proper role of government, in my opinion, but nonetheless, interesting bill that is probably going to make it through the process. It's going to be heard. It made it already through the House. It passed the House this last week, I believe, and is now in the Senate. So being heard on April 3rd. We'll talk about that again there. Perfect. House Bill 1175. I like this bill. I don't like smart meters. Talked about this one every week pretty much, but it's going to be heard on Tuesday on the House floor. Really hoping this one makes it through. This would require utility companies to get opt in. Like you have to opt in to get a smart meter. They just can't install a smart meter without telling you. Because we have government monopoly power sources, I think this is a pro liberty position. So we'll talk about that one. That one's going to be heard on the House floor. I'll be listening, watching that one, and seeing how people vote on that for sure. House Bill 1209. This is the first week we've talked about it. Probably should have caught it a lot sooner, but folks, there's over 500 bills. It's easy for a couple to slip through the cracks. But this it does a lot of things. Maybe we need to get somebody to talk about it. I don't know how much interest there is out there from people on the marijuana issue. But this bill would, in my mind, one of the biggest things it does is it expands the purchase limit. So right now you can only buy 1 ounce of marijuana legally in Colorado at a time. This would expand it to 2 ounces, 2 ounces at a time. I think that's a good thing. I think it let people buy more at once. They're on the roads less. You already know they're marijuana users, so maybe they're driving a little bit less. It's not a bad thing. But nonetheless, I think, but there's so much more to that bill. Don't get me wrong. 1209 has all this regulation. They call it streamlined. They do all these different things. I'm hoping it's a good bill. I haven't heard too much about it except for that. The safe to grow up or the one chance to grow up, or all the anti-marijuana people in Colorado. What's that guy's name? Doug something. I don't remember. He ran for office years ago, but he runs that. They have that thing, the anti-marijuana group, and they're going after this bill. That's actually how I heard about it because I subscribe to their email list. Like Representative Bottoms was saying, I send it for everybody's email list because I want to see what they're saying. So moving on there. Um, Reducing the cost of housing. This is Senator Lundine's bill. So pro liberty bill there, Senate Bill 131 has not been assigned to a committee yet, even though been there. Well, it's been assigned to a committee, just not on the calendar yet. So keep an eye on that one. House Bill 1243. It's interesting. As a libertarian, I support this bill. I like it, but it was very interesting seeing the local media coverage and all of the more conservative people on X this last week really railing against this bill. But House Bill 1243 would prevent a police officer from asking you why they pulled you over. It's kind of self-incriminating, right? To come up to me and say, "Hey, do you know why I pulled you over?" It would prohibit them from doing that. And actually, it would require the police officer to tell you why they pulled you over. They'd have to come up and say, "Hey, I pulled you over because your tail light's out, or because I saw you run through that stop sign, or this or that." I think that's how it should be. I think the police should be telling you why they pulled you over. They're interrupting your day. You're driving to work. You're doing different things. They should tell you right off the bat why they pulled you over. Not that you're going to be able to, argue with them. Don't get me wrong. If you did something wrong, that's fine. Do the crime, pay the time, or whatever. Whatever. But you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, what do you think? Go ahead, Michael.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think one of the biggest frustrations I have with all the woke stuff that's popped up is it's absolutely prevented legitimate discussions like this. I think that the woke stuff is also prevented legitimate discussions over things like civil asset forfeiture. If we didn't have that movement before, I truly believe that this bill right here would probably pass a little bit easier because we wouldn't have all this political nonsense, all this political garbage that prevents people from possibly taking a second look at something like this because just because of how everything got so heated over the last few years and how that stops people from just logically thinking about stuff, but from getting emotional and then really kind of sticking to their guns and just kind of, you know, basically burrowing down and forfeiting or not forfeiting, but fortifying their position. So,
Gotcha. No, good points there. Good points for sure. Moving on here, we talked about the regulate private security. That's being heard this Thursday. We'll keep people updated on that one. The rideshare regulation bill going that Thursday. And then Senate Bill 5, this is the big union bill. It's spurring a ballot measure. I'm going to be talking about this a lot. It's going into the election and this and that about making Colorado a right to work state and the unions and this and that. It's a big issue that people need to be paying attention to. I really want to talk about more. But just so people know, Senate Bill 5 is now in the House Committee on Business Affairs and Labor because it did pass out of the state Senate and they did pass it and send it to appropriations. So it's making its way through there. So we'll see, but more likely going to Polis might actually veto that one. So we'll take a look here. But now we're on to the sad bills, and some of them are really good bills that died. So here's our little recap of all the bills that have died. Just the bills we've been tracking. There's a lot of bills out there, folks, but these are the bills that we've been tracking that died this year so far. So here we go. House Bill 1237, soft closing of alcohol beverage establishments, died this last week. Interesting, and actually, the bill sponsors helped. It said, "Go ahead and kill this bill." There's so much controversy and confusion, and moms against drunk driving, mad. All these other people were against it, and this and that. So hopefully that's an issue that comes back to get rid of the state. I would love to see the state not have any control over when local counties, local municipalities set their closing times. I think it should be up to the local communities because every community is different. But nonetheless, that bill was killed. Also killed Senate Bill 156 to reduce the cost of regulation in Colorado. Of course, why would they have passed that bill, right? House Bill 1255, the healthcare provider right to exercise conscience. Representative Luck's bill was dead. Here's a good one from Representative Scott Bottoms. House Bill 1251 would require parental consent before a minor may obtain medical services, specifically around abortions and transgender mutilation type stuff. So, of course, Democrats don't like that. Why should they have to ask the parents? You know what I mean? Doesn't the kid know well enough? House Bill 1190, the so-called Tamale Act, Representative Gonzalez's great bill to allow for the food of sales that require refrigeration, was killed, of course. House Bill 1232, liability and means of self-defense is prohibited. Representative Lux's bill's dead. House Bill 1089, county mail and ballot signature verification requirements, to allow a bipartisan team of election judges to verify signatures on mail-in ballots. Who wants that? Bill's dead. House Bill 1141, gift card and retail property crime penalties. Dead. Who wants that? Who wants to go after criminal? The Democrats in the majority there do not want to start putting more people in jail for for committing retail crime. But unfortunately, that's how it goes. Senate Bill 56, the Sullivan's ridiculous bill to lower taxes on premium cigars. Hey, I like that bill, but nonetheless, they killed it. House Bill 1055, repeal firearm deal requirements. Freshman Representative Brooks's bill there, of course, killed. The egg bill, Representative Gonzalez, in support of liberty. Working with the Liberty community in Colorado, who are really concerned about the egg issue. Of course, they killed that bill. Bill to get rid of the recycled paper carryout bag fee. Of course, they killed that bill as well. The insect production for human consumption, basically to ban insects for human consumption, killed. Open source software and voting systems, killed. Local funding for vulnerable road user protection, that would increase your registration fees for protected bike lanes, killed, but they're going to bring it back in another way, I've heard. House Bill 1145 to prevent the trafficking of minor into Colorado for abortion or transgender, kill from Representative Bottoms, killed. Disclosing information to immigration authorities. Caldwell joined us on the live stream and told us that they pulled that one. But, of course, anything that's going to enforce immigration law is going to be killed. House Bill 1144, repeal retail delivery fees. Woog's a good bill, killed. Representative Sukla's bill to get rid of the collection limits on your rain barrels. Bill was killed. Enforcement of federal immigration law. This was the big effort by Republicans this year. They all got behind this one to require Colorado enforce federal immigration law. But of course, the Democrats in the Senate and the legislature do not want to do that. House Bill 1242, I testified on this one last Monday. Great bill. Representative Garcia Sanders did a phenomenal job of presenting the value in this bill to the committee, basically to allow more great government transparency, to repeal Senate Bill 158 last year, which was a bad anti-transparency bill, And of course, this was a bipartisan effort, actually. It was crazy to see who showed up to testify in favor of 1242. You had the League of Women Voters, you had people on the left and people on the right, and libertarians, of course, all in the mix, trying to support government transparency. But of course, our legislators do not want government transparency. Senate Bill 57 to cancel the voter registration of non-citizens. They killed that bill, right? They don't care about that issue. They don't think that's an issue. Here's the big one you were talking about, Michael. House Bill 1073 was just killed this last week. Representative Bradley and Representative Regina English were on this bill to basically this Senate House Bill 1073 would have required child rapist to serve jail time. In Colorado, a child rapist can get out on probation because it's such it's such a low level misdemeanor. And of course, Democrats killed this bill. They don't want to put child rapists in jail. Absolutely insane that this is going on. Any thoughts on that one, real quick, Michael?
Well, yeah, absolutely. First off, Regina English, she came out with a ridiculous bill last year for pet registration in Colorado. It got withdrawn as it should have. And then this year she turns around and she sponsors this bill. It took a lot of guts as a Democrat to hop onto this bill with Rep. Bradley because of how hated Rep. Bradley is within the Colorado legislature on the Democratic from the Democratic caucus. So I gotta say this. Thank you, Rep. Regina English, for hopping on this bill. Greatly appreciate it. Wish more Democrats would have took a bold stand to actually protect children, unlike how so many uh, representatives on both sides of the aisle will use children as an excuse to harm our human liberties. So I'm very grateful for Rep English taking that stance, and let's hope that this is not the end of this type of bill, and we see Rep Bradley and other senator and hopefully a senator as well. Even who knows? Maybe we could even get a Democratic senator to hop on board this bill, and we can see this one pushed all the way to the governor's office next year.
Yeah. A bill I was happy to see die, Senate Bill 76, was one of the worst anti-marijuana bills we've seen in recent years. Of course, we had Senator Pelton and Representative Hartsook join us previously to discuss this bill and tell us some of the amendments they were planning on making that wouldn't have made it so bad, but really happy to see Senate Bill 76 die. Last one here, Senate Bill 139, the grocery and utility bill reduction measures, the AFWERA bill. Senator Mark Baisley would have basically gotten rid of all of these fees, offices, and this and that. But of course, they were going to kill that bill. So, um, good bill. We saw a lot of good bills die. Sad stuff, folks. But 42 slides later, 42 slides. We had an amazing guest tonight. Definitely encourage people to go back and watch what Representative Bottom said. Fascinating stuff. Really providing insider information on what happens at our state government, and no holds barred for sure. But Michael, any final thoughts here tonight?
Uh, Two, I just want to say this. Thanks for sticking with us. This was 2.5 hours. Holy cow. But we covered a lot, and there was a lot of really good stuff that we talked about, particularly the Governor Bottoms interview that we had that went almost an hour, completely unplanned, and a lot of great topics we covered. I do want to say this: your testimony works. We heard from Alicia Garcia. We've heard from other people, particularly Senate Bill 3. I know some people in the comments were saying that it didn't matter. It didn't matter. No, the amount of pain and anguish we put the left through for Senate Bill 3 alone so far is really making a difference. We're really putting the screws to them, and you've got to keep it up. We've got to punish them as much as we possibly can without crossing that line. We don't want to be like these Antifa people who are trying to attack liberty heroes like Aaron Lee. We want to actually go after these we want to actually be able to go after these Democrats who are trying to strip us of our human liberty. So please keep up the fight, keep at it, and we will win as long as we keep it up. It may not be right away, but we're going to win as long as we stick together. And they want us to fracture, they want us to falter, they want us to give up. You cannot give up, because if you give up now, it's going to get worse. And if you leave, it's going to follow you. It's not a matter of if, but win. So keep up the fight, fight here, fight now, and we will give Colorado a better future. Last thing I want to say, we are hosting, Brandon and I are going to be a part of a legislative action dinner on March 29th. Brandon is going to be the MC for the event. We've got four fantastic speakers. We've got Mayor Aaron Lamb. We have got Rep Ryan Gonzalez. We have got Ian Escalante, and we also have um, and we yeah, excuse me. And I'm gonna do a little short presentation as well. So please, I want to see you there. It's gonna be March 29th in Denver. Check the LPCO Twitter, check the LPCO Facebook, check the Instagram so you can find more details. So that way you can purchase tickets. There's still a ton of tickets for you. Please tell a friend, and I cannot wait, and we cannot wait to see you there on the 29th.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate everybody joining us. Awesome little speech pep talk there at the end, Michael. Definitely got me energized. Keep fighting. Yeah, Colorado's the tip of the spear. You know, it's these fights aren't going away no matter where you live, no matter where you want to run. Somebody's going to be trying to take away your freedom. Somebody's going to be trying to fight. So we have a good organized liberty community here. We're getting more organized. There's more people joining every day, every week, every month, every year, and we're not giving up. We will be free one day. So just appreciate everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great seeing everybody in the chat. Loved the comments. Couldn't respond to them all, but I definitely read every single comment people wrote in the chat. It was a fun. Great seeing so many liberty leaders and so many of our great pro freedom people here in Colorado on the chat on these live streams every week. I know for a fact other legislators watch these every week. The ones that aren't guests, there's a couple of them out there that see what we're saying. So it does have an impact. We can have a voice. We can have influence over our local government. So just appreciate everybody. We're not giving up. We're going to keep fighting, and there's so much we can do. There's so much opportunity here. So thank you, everybody. But we'll see you. We'll see you next week, 7:30 p.m. every Sunday during the legislative session. We will be back.